ERN moderator, thank you very much. This is Michael Jackson, board member appointed by the governor in the faculty role. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We will do a roll call to establish a quorum, beginning with myself, Michael Jackson, appointed by the governor. Next member, Donna Gerber.
Donna Gerber here, public member appointed by the Speaker of the Assembly, Anthony Randon.
Elizabeth Wood.
This is the moderator. Reminder to board members, if you wish to speak, please unmute your microphone. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't. This is Elizabeth Woods, appointed by the governor in advanced practice role. Am I heard now? Oh.
We could hear you. Thank you.
This is Dolores. Am I next?
President Jackson, are you still doing a roll call?
This is the moderator. I just wanted to let folks know we cannot hear President Jackson if he is currently speaking right now.
This is Dolores Trujillo.
Continuing with the roll call, Elizabeth Woods.
This is Elizabeth Woods. I'm here, and I've been appointed by the governor in the advanced practice role.
Imelda
Seha-Buckowitz, appointed by the governor as a public member.
Trandy Phillips.
This is Trandy Phillips here, direct care provider appointed by the governor.
Karen Skelton.
Karen Skelton, a public member appointed by Governor Gavin Newsom.
Ken Marlborough, public member.
Ken Marlborough.
By the Senate Rules Committee.
And Dolores Trujillo.
Dolores Trujillo, appointed by the governor as a direct care provider, RN.
is Loretta Melby. I am the Acting Executive Officer for the Board of Registered Nurse appointed by the Board.
Thank you very much. We'll move along to item 2.0, which is the general instructions for WebEx meeting. BRN moderator, could you please provide the instructions?
Thank you, Board President. This is the moderator. To facilitate public comment, we will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer feature. We'll display a screen in just a moment that outlines the process through which the public members can utilize that feature once it becomes active. When the board reaches a point in the agenda at which public comment is appropriate, the question and answer feature will be turned on, and members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by inserting their phrase, "I would like to make a comment," in the question box, which is typically in the lower right of your screen, as you can see displayed on the screen share now. The moderator will then call on the individual and unmute their microphone. The individual will have 2 minutes to make their comments. At the conclusion of the 2 minutes, the individual's microphone will be muted, and we will move on to the next member of the public who has a comment. Please note that the question and answer feature is being used only as a means for the members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. This is not a means to ask questions of the moderator or members of the board. Such inquiries submitted using this feature will not be answered. When asking your question, please make sure the question is directed at the host in the dropdown. Also, if any attendees utilize a profane name, they will not be called upon to prevent members of the public from being subject to profane language. While you are free to express criticism or negative views, for the sake of the members of the public participating on the call, please do not use profane language when making public comments to the board. I will provide a brief reminder of this approach at the start of each public comment item. Finally, when board members or senior staff are not speaking, I would like to remind them to mute their microphone. If I detect background noise during the meeting as a result of unmuted microphones, I will interject with a brief friendly reminder. Thank you, Board President. That concludes my comments.
Thank you very much, BRN moderator. We're moving on to item 3.0 on the agenda. Item 3.0 is review and vote on whether to approve the minutes of board meetings held on October 17th, 2019, November 13th and 14th, 2019, December 5th, 2019, December 20th, 2019, January 9th, 2020, January 17th, 2020, and February 19th and 20th, 2020.
Mr. President, this is Donna Gerber. I would like to indicate that agenda item 3.3, December 5th, 2019, lists me as absent. However, I was at that meeting, so I would like to suggest we amend that particular minutes.
Is that your motion?
Yes, if there are no other amendments to any of the other items, I could move to adopt all the minutes for each month with the understanding that December 5th would be amended as I indicated.
I second your motion. Are there any public comments related to the minutes? Any board comments related to the minutes?
Thank you,
Yes,
Board President. This is
Elizabeth Woods. I was not at the October meeting. And we didn't have a meeting in December 20th, no?
It was a telephonic meeting, Board Member Wood.
Okay. All right. special meeting. Is that the one you're referring to?
That's one of the board meetings, correct?
Yes. Okay.
BRN moderator?
Board President, just wanted to clarify, are you opening this item up for public comment at this time?
Yeah. Any public comments for item 3.0?
Okay, we will open up for public comment now. I will be activating the question and answer feature. We have a screen share right now that we are doing for the members of the public to see how they should submit their questions. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." I'll pause for a few moments for members of the public to do that. All right, Board President, we have one member of the public with the initials LS that would like to make a comment. Member of the public LS, I will unmute your microphone in one moment and give you a verbal cue once you're unmuted. LS, you are unmuted.
Hi, my name is LaShonda Shannon. The January 17, 2020 meeting minutes with the public comment, my name is misspelled, and I would ask that that be corrected. There's no capital S in my first name.
Board President, that was the only request for public comment on this item. Would you like me to close the public comment window for this?
Yes, please. Thank you. No other public comments, correct? BRN moderator?
Those changes in my original motion.
And the second?
Me, Michael Jackson, seconds it.
Thank you.
I call for the vote. Michael Jackson votes yes. Donna Gerber?
Donna Gerber, yes.
Elizabeth Woods? Elizabeth Woods?
Woods, yes. Sorry, I didn't unmute myself.
Randy Phillips?
Randy Phillips votes yes.
Imelda Seha Buckowitz?
Imelda votes yes.
Kenneth Marlborough?
Kenneth Marlborough votes yes.
Dolores Trujillo?
Dolores Trujillo votes yes.
Aaron Skelton?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That closes item 3.0. Moving on to item 4.0, Executive Officer Report. We'll turn it over to the Acting Executive Officer, Laura Melby.
Thank you, Michael. I am Acting Executive Officer Loretta Melby, and I have an Executive Officer Report that will cover quite a few things that are going on within the board recently. The Board of Registered Nursing is monitoring the impact that the coronavirus is having on our licensees, our nursing students, nursing faculty, nursing programs, the communities that they serve, and our patients who are requiring a more specialized care. The BSA audit process, even with everything else going on, and we are responding to inquiries and holding virtual meetings, and we are expecting a report in June. It's also important to note that the BRN is a total of 238.8 positions, and that on March 20th, the office adopted a casual telework environment. On day one, that was a Friday, March 20th, all but 50 staff were working from home. Since then, there have been as few as 18 people in the office, to include NECs, licensing, enforcement, administration, IT, and executive staff. Initially, there was a period of adjustment to establish a work routine outside the office, satisfactory connectivity for all, and improved communication between staff and units to ensure a smooth work flow and maintain productivity. Within our enforcement division, the pandemic has caused some issues that may result in delays in the enforcement process. The expert practice desk is experiencing some case rejections by experts and requests to delay returning cases due to nurses working more shifts. Complaint intake is having issues obtaining court and arrest records. Courts are closed due to the stay-at-home order, or staff are unable to order records online. The investigators are experiencing delays obtaining records from facilities because facility staff is not in the office or could be working remotely. The Office of Administrative Hearings is only hearing interim suspension order cases telephonically because the judges are teleworking due to the courts being closed. On a more positive note, enforcement was developing and enhancing electronic procedures prior to this unprecedented event, and now they have implemented these changes. The complaint intake and probation is placing all paper documents into Breeze when they are received. Electronic handoffs have been created between a complaint intake, intervention, citations, legal support, discipline, and probation. Investigative staff are inputting all investigation documents into our shared drive so that they are available electronically. Discipline is now a completely paperless process review process. Discipline is now a completely paperless document review process from transmittal memos all the way to recommendations to adopt memos. Investigators are conducting most in-person interviews via Skype, Zoom, or other electronic platforms. All intervention evaluation committees, all nurse support groups, all AA and NA meetings are being conducted electronically, helping nurses on probation comply with their probation orders. Most staff and processes in licensing are being handled through a remote platform. Some staff are only returning to the office once a week to take care of any administrative items that can't be done at home. This is done on a rotating basis throughout 2 days a week to ensure that we are abiding by the social distancing guidelines. Additionally, our licensing support staff work in office 1 day a week and process all incoming mail, scan documents, and prepare their work for the week. The licensing manager and supervisors are in daily contact with staff. They conduct weekly all staff meetings to discuss any updates, workloads, assignments, and system changes. The public information unit is handling a lot of calls. For the first week, March 23rd to 27th, they were offered 2,741 calls. They answered 2,243. It was an 82% answering rate. The next week, they were offered 2,675 calls. They handled 2,047 with a 77% rate. The week of April 6th to April 10th, they were offered 2,775 calls. They answered 2,122, and that was a answer rate of 76%. For 3-week stats, they were offered 8,191 total calls. They handled 6,412 of them with a 78%. And that was this occurred after we transferred the calls to a teleworking environment, the caller staff. So that was really, really positive numbers for us. The continuing education unit, these are numbers current as of December 2019. They've audited over 6,650 RNs. For continuing education, and 139 have been referred over to the enforcement for non-compliance. As with any changes in process, it takes time to adjust, but for the most part, staff have adjusted quickly. All of these changes do not occur without some glitches along the way, and hiccups can continue to occur. But staff diligently work through them to fine-tune the process. Through the volume of individuals teleworking, the system can be slow at times, but staff are doing all they can to ensure we are maintaining our processing timeframes and help to offset any possible delays that may be experienced during this time. Staff are going above and beyond to assist others with their units and in other units to ensure the work flows as seamlessly as possible. I would like to thank our staff for adapting to all of the recent changes and working with the management and supervisory teams to ensure that we remain successful. Lastly, I'd like to cover some of the licensing processes that are being utilized right now to assist with the COVID-19 pandemic. In order to bring out-of-state licensed healthcare personnel into California to assist us, the process that is being used is completely outside of the BRN and is handled through the California Emergency Medical Services Authority. State of emergency was called. There was a provision allowing out-of-state personnel to provide services in California, assisting with the effects of COVID-19. This assistance was for preparation, response, mitigation, and recovery. To date, we have 640 out-of-state RNs and nurse practitioners that have been approved to come into California and help our nursing workforce. They will be utilized in staffing agencies, hospitals, as dialysis specialists, in skilled nursing facilities and senior care homes. As EMS providers, they can also provide telehealth services, help in clinics, in field hospitals, with hospice, air medical, and mobile medical facilities. We are also using the matrix that is on our website for nursing students who may wish to help out during the COVID-19 pandemic while they are enrolled in school. And it is up to the academic institutions on whether or not they want to provide credit for those hours served. That is the end of my EO report.
Mr. Chairman, this is Donna Gerber. Could I ask a question?
Sure, thank you.
Pardon to everybody here, this is really off the agenda, and perhaps President Jackson and Member Trujillo will be surprised by this, but I think on behalf of the rest of the board and also to recognize for any of the members of the public who may be listening, I just wanted to indicate that we have 2 board members who are on the front lines of this pandemic as we speak, and that is President Jackson, who is an emergency room nurse in Southern California, as well as a nursing student faculty member, and also Dolores Trujillo, who is in Northern California, a board member, and is an NICU nurse and also qualified for the ICU. In fact, Dolores worked last night. She works nights, and it's amazing that she can be in this meeting on this call this morning. So I know the rest of the board members are very much aware of this, but I wanted to make sure that the public is aware as well, and to recognize them for their contribution to California, as well as any of the frontline workers who might be on the line today and who are in California. So thank you, and thank you for your above and beyond service.
Board Vice President Donna Gerber, I'd like to thank you for your kind words and thank Dolores Trujillo for her service, and any other person that's contributing to this and supporting the frontline workers and other nurses and other healthcare workers and our EMS providers and the grocery store workers and the people preparing food that are still having to work and deliver food. I'd like to thank them in a moment of personal privilege right here, right now, and thank all the BRN staff that have to keep the wheels rolling. At this time, we'd like to move on to item 5.0, discussion regarding Executive Order number 39-20 and waivers by the Director of the California Department of Consumer Affairs. Loretta, are you discussing this also?
Yes, Michael, I will cover this one as well. Thank you. So this agenda item is just to go over and discuss some of the processes around the waivers that have been implemented through our DCA director. The response to the COVID-19 pandemic, as we've seen, may continue for weeks, if not months. And on March 4th, Governor Gavin Newsom proclaimed a state of emergency. On March 30th, he gave our director of the Department of Consumer Affairs the authority to issue waivers of certain laws and regulations pertaining to licensees of the DCA healing arts boards. So not just the BRN, but medical board, pharmacy board, etc. Currently, there are 5 posted waivers related to nursing in response to COVID-19. There's a 6th waiver on there that addresses the physician assistant, but there are 5 that are specific to nursing, and I will cover those. It is important to know that when a waiver is requested, there is a 4 to 7 business day process for review that starts with DCA, goes to legal, and then goes out to the individual boards, and then is ultimately approved and posted onto the website. Full waivers can be accessed for viewing on the DCA waiver website. The first waiver I'm going to discuss is the waiver that affects our CEUs. And so for individuals whose active license expire between March 31st and June 30th, the DCA director temporarily waives the need to have CEUs. The CEU waiver is for currently licensed RNs. Temporary waiver, and all CEU requirements will need to be satisfied 6 months after the emergency order is lifted. The RN license period is for the 2 years and is different from the back to active license that is only in effect for 6 months. And that 6 month back to active license is the one that is covered in the DCA waiver number 2 that I will speak of next. It is important to know that when you go onto Breeze to renew your license, that there is a section for CEUs, and that the person that is renewing their license would just type into that section COVID-19 CEU waiver, 30 units, and then continue to process the rest of the application for renewal as typically done. The next waiver is the one that I referred to above, and that was the back to active process. So with that one, the DCA director temporarily waives any statutory or regulatory requirement that an individual seeking to reactivate or restore a license originally issued pursuant to Division 2 of the Code. So the back to active process is waiving fees and CEUs. This license is only restored and valid for up to 6 months or when the state of emergency ceases to exist, whichever is sooner. If these individuals want to stay licensed after the state of emergency, they will have to apply and complete the licensing process. These waivers apply only to an individual license that is in a retired, inactive, or canceled status and has been in such status no longer than 5 years. This does not apply to any license that was surrendered or revoked pursuant to disciplinary proceedings or any individuals who entered a retired, inactive, or canceled status following initiation of a disciplinary proceeding. As of April 9th, 2020, staff have reviewed 153 waiver requests. Number 3 is the waiver that affects the pre-licensure nursing student. This is the one that I think we're getting the most traffic with. So with respect to courses in the nursing areas of mental health, obstetrics, and pediatrics, the DCA director waives that portion of CCR regulation Title 16, Section 1426, Subdivision G2, that required previously 75% of clinical hours in a course to be in direct patient care in a BRN-approved clinical setting. With this waiver, it now decreases that direct patient care requirement to a 50% in clinical courses, and that must be in direct patient care. With respect to the courses in geriatric and medical surgical, a waiver is available for them to be applied to those courses, allowing the decrease in direct patient care to 50% as well. However, there are additional items that need to be met in order for the nursing education consultant that's assigned to the school to approve that. The goal is to get students into the facilities to answer the call to help, and that was directed by the governor's office. And so in meeting that, the initial response was to have them complete the 75% direct patient care hours, but we do understand that this is unprecedented time and that still may not be a possibility. So those schools that need assistance with this can request the additional waiver. Once those items are met, the NEC shall approve the request. If the approved nursing program fails to submit information satisfactorily to the board or fails to meet the conditions, an NEC shall deny the request. If the request is not approved or denied on or before 5 p.m. on the 7th business day after receipt of the request shall be deemed approved. As a matter of policy, the BRN considers that time spent in direct patient care better prepares a student for situations the student may face once licensed, but we are aware that this is an unprecedented time. The NECs are continuing to process these waiver requests as they come in and are meeting the 7-day business timeline. 4 and 5 are similar waivers. Business Professions Code Section 2836.1, Subdivision D, permits a certified nurse practitioner holding a furnishing number to furnish and order drugs or devices under physician and surgeon supervision. In addition, Business and Professions Code Section 2836.1, Subdivision E, limits to 4 the number of nurse practitioners the physician and surgeon may supervise at any time. This waiver waives the section which prohibits a physician and service from supervising more than 4 nurse practitioners at any time in furnishing and ordering drugs. This allows the physician to supervise the number that they have deemed acceptable. Number 5, this is an identical waiver to the one above. It is the Business Profession Code Section 2746.51. And it permits a certified nurse midwife holding a furnishing number to furnish or order drugs or devices under physician and surgeon supervision. Business Profession Code Section 2746.51, Subdivision A4, limits to 4 the number of certified nurse midwives the physician and surgeon may supervise at one time. And so with this one, they waived that as well to the Subdivision A4 to the extent it limits to 4 the number of certified nurse midwives, physician, and surgeon may supervise at one time. And so again, that allows the physician to oversee the number of certified nurse midwives that he or she deems acceptable for their practice. That is the end of the report on the waiver process.
Executive Officer Melby. BRN Moderator, can we open up the Q&A for public comments related to items 4 and 5?
Thank you, Board President. We'll go ahead and do that now. On your screen, you see a reminder of how you can participate using the Q&A feature. I have just activated it, and members of the public can utilize the feature now to represent that they would like to make a comment by typing "I would like to make a comment" into the question box. I will then call on the individuals in the order that I received them. I have 3 individuals so far who've identified that they would like to make a comment. So I will be unmuting the microphone of the first person. The first individual is a Sandy Melton. I will cue you, Sandy, once I have unmuted your microphone. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Yes.
BRN Moderator, this is Lori, the Acting Executive Officer. I did forget to update the public on what public comment means. I apologize, I missed that. Do I have permission to go ahead now and explain public comment and the role with the board within that?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So the one thing that we wanted to discuss what public comments are. So when you have a public comment, this can be done for items that are on the agenda as well at the end of this agenda for items that are off of the agenda. The board members are listening. They do want to hear, but as the comments are, they are public comment, not public interaction and public discussion. Therefore, the board members may not be able to respond, but they can hear. So the public is invited to make 2 general types of comments during meetings. Comments on the items not on the agenda speak about anything you believe is important for the members to know. Remember, board and committee members cannot address any items during the meeting that is not on the agenda. Comments on the agenda. The public will have an opportunity to comment on each agenda item During this time, please comment on that agenda item only. Tips for impactful public comments. Effective comments are straightforward and respectful. Address one topic only. Start with your name and where you're from. Share ideas and concerns, not opinions about other people. Avoid repeating the same comments already made by others. There is no need to deliver a formal speech. If there is a time limit for comments, stay within it. Time limits may be set by the board or bureau so that everyone wanting to participate has a chance to do so. Thank you very much. We can go ahead and proceed with public comment.
And this is Reza, board counsel. If I may just make one additional clarification. While the board appreciates knowing who its stakeholders are, it's not necessary for you to participate in the public comment to identify yourself by name if you choose not to. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the moderator. I will go ahead and proceed with public comment. I'm going to be unmuting the microphone of an individual who is identified as Sandy Melton. So Sandy Melton, your
BRN moderator.
Your
BRN moderator, this is Michael Jackson. Can we limit the public comments to 2 minutes, please?
Yes, 2 minutes will be the limit for each individual making a comment, and I will enforce that by starting a timer at the beginning of the individual's comments. Sandy Melton, I will unmute your microphone now.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am currently President, COABN South, and Director of the School of Nursing and Allied Health at Ventura College. As the California Association of Colleges of Nursing, CACN, and the California Organization of Associate Degree Nursing, COABN, our two organizations represent nursing education for private and public universities and community colleges for the state of California and more than 26,000 nursing students. In response to this COVID global pandemic and its far-reaching consequences, we have two key concerns to which we need an urgent response. First, the waiver decreasing required direct patient care time to 50% as issued by DCA on April 3rd requires adjustment. It is not a sufficient decrease in direct patient care hours for the majority of colleges to graduate current students in their final semester and to allow remaining students to progress in their respective programs. We must find a solution that's for all students, not just a minority of students. Our request specific to California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 1426, Subdivision G2, is that the percentage for direct patient care be adjusted down from 50% to 25%. We understand that the preference is to keep the direct versus non-direct patient care experience ratio 50 to 50 in clinical learning experience as is, as long as there are clinical placements available, which at this point there are not. There are 21 California state universities, 4 UCs, and over 30 private universities with nursing.
Approximately 10 seconds left.
Serious? Oh, shoot. Anyway, we took a poll of 32 nursing schools in Southern California. 81% reported that their students would be unable to complete their semesters. 50% reported that
This is the BRN moderator. The 2 minutes was exceeded, so I muted the member of the. We'll now move on to the next member of the public, an individual who has identified themselves as Judy Corliss. I will unmute that individual's microphone in a moment and verbally cue you once I have done so. We will then start the 2-minute timer for you to begin your comments. Judy Corliss, your microphone is unmuted now.
Can you hear me? Good morning. This is Judy Corliss, former BRN member. I will tag on to say, so I won't repeat the code and the title. I believe that it's the 60-day that Michael Jackson wrote about is merely a Band-Aid because our clinical sites are not going to be available enough over the next several months to be able to accommodate our students, the 26,000 plus. So I would recommend, and I have already notified the governor, that I think we should add 6 to 12 months on that and evaluate the data. Michael Jackson wrote in his letter to the public that the reason for not wanting it any longer was there wasn't any regulations for the clinical simulation labs. And I want to direct you to the NUAC committee. The direction that committee came up with the standards for all simulation laboratories by Dr. KT Waxman from UCSF. She gave those recommendations to the committee and to Joseph Morris, our previous executive officer, on April 18th, 2018. So those standards are there. They're used across the nation, and they have been proven in many states based on the National Council State Boards of Nursing recommendation for the 50%. So if you need a copy of that, I'll be happy to bring that to the next meeting for board members so that you can see there are. And the last point I want to make is that the board does not specifically mandate what teach methods are done. They only mandate that the objectives be met by the methods at the schools, and then the NECs go and deliver
10 more seconds, please.
information back. Okay, the NECs go into back as to how the objectives are being met by all students, so they normally don't mandate that. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. This is the moderator. We'll move on to the next individual who has public comment. That individual is identified by the name of Duke Nguyen. So Duke Nguyen, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment, and I'll remind you that the limit for public comment for each individual is 2 minutes. Duke Nguyen, your microphone is unmuted now.
Good morning. My name is Duck Nguyen. I'm a senior nursing student at West Coast University and a veteran. Now, I joined the Marine Corps because I had an obligation to personally thank this country for providing my family the opportunity to live in freedom during the conflicts of the Vietnam War. Now, through my service, I learned that my calling in life was to serve as a registered nurse. Now, I want to thank Director Kirschmauer for providing relief to schools. However, because the BRN's refusal to act quickly and allow for a lift in direct patient care hours, many veterans will be delayed in graduation. Now, this means that we will not likely be in the hospital floors treating patients when COVID-19 is expected to have a second wave. Your inaction will cause veterans to lose valuable GI benefits, including housing stipends, and will harm public health. Now, I urge you to take actions now to allow schools the flexibility past June 30th into 2021, and they will need to serve students as COVID continues to prevent future delayed graduations and close programs. Thank you again for allowing me to speak and for your time.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next individual who has public comment. This individual is identified by the initials KA. So individual identified by the initials KA, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment. And I will remind you that there's a 2-minute limit for public comment. KA, I am unmuting your microphone now.
COVID-19 has changed healthcare in America. COVID is not here to just visit for 60 days. This virus will shape the profession of nursing. Nursing schools, nursing students, and the governor of California have all recognized the importance of this and have acted quickly in finding solutions to try to adapt and meet the needs of our states. The BRN trying to keep with current regulations is like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. Your regulations will not allow nursing students in our state to license. Nursing students in the state wish we could get direct care hours and continue to learn like you had the opportunity to do. This is not our fate. We are post-COVID-19 nurses. We are the future nurses of California. If the BRN's current regulations cannot support students in continuing our education towards licensure, I recommend you give our schools a waiver of maximum flexibility so they can best prepare us to be nurses and allow us to continue our education during this time. Thank you.
Public who would like to make a comment. Individual has identified themselves as Renee Schweitzer. So Renee Schweitzer, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment and starting your 2-minute public comment. Renee, I am unmuting your microphone now.
Thank you. My name is Renee Schweitzer, and I'm responsible for student clinical placements in the states of California, Texas, and Florida for West Coast University. A solution is intended to solve a problem, and although the 50% direct patient care waiver demonstrates a great attempt towards this, it unfortunately is not even close enough to touch the magnitude of this problem. 50% direct patient care is what most states work with on a very normal day, particularly Texas and Florida, and we can all agree this is not a normal day. On behalf of all nursing programs and students up and down the state, it is imperative that programs be granted a waiver by this body to utilize whatever modality necessary to progress their nursing students towards graduation in order to support the needs that an exhausted workforce is in desperate need of. Granting this waiver is only temporary, and it doesn't abandon the importance of direct patient care. All students, whether or not they are near the end of their programs or just in the beginning, will have multiple opportunities to get this vital part of their nursing education. Please hear this. This is the only solution to this problem. If the existing waivers of 50% is all that the body is considering, then this will be preventing nursing students' ability to graduate on time. Thank you.
Thank you. I will move on to the next member of the public who's expressed that they would like to make a comment, an individual who's identified themselves as Mary Wickman. Mary Wickman, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment. I'll remind you there's a 2-minute limit for public comment. Mary, I am unmuting your microphone now.
This is Mary Whitman, and I'm speaking on behalf of CACN and COADN. And I wanted to talk a little bit about clinical placements and the decrease in available clinical placements as of right now. In a poll taken April the 9th of 2020 of Southern California community colleges, 158 hospitals have denied clinical placement to nursing students. Those that have remained open to students are able to accommodate only a very small number of students, in contrast to hundreds of students who will need clinical placements. Secondly, the suggested alternative of students joining the California Health Corps to obtain direct patient care experiences has not been a viable option to date for many graduating students and students who need to graduate on time. There have been significant delays processing student applications and a selection preference for licensed healthcare providers. Such restrictions prevent student access to this resource to meet immediate clinical placement requirements. An adequate number of nursing workforce during this pandemic and in its aftermath is critical to the health and welfare of Californians. The need for new graduate nurses is growing because of the COVID pandemic. 34 Southern California hospitals already put out calls to hire new nurses to begin employment now. Qualified nursing students must be able to complete their programs on time and graduate in May and June. The remedy must be swift, lest we suffer the consequences of a nursing shortage with only 50% of our graduating nursing workforce, when indeed we need 100% at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to the next member of the public who would like to make a comment. An individual who's identified themselves as Ryan Panesewicz. I apologize for any mispronunciation of individuals' names.
BRN moderator,
Yes.
Can I make an announcement really quick, please? Board member Karen Skelton will have to leave the call from 10 to 11, from what I understand, but she will return. We will still have a quorum in her absence. She just won't be allowed to vote on anything that is actionable while she's off the call.
Thank you for that clarification. I'll move on to the next member of the public who's expressed they would like to make a comment, Ryan Panesewicz. Again, apologize if that's a mispronunciation of your name. I will be unmuting your microphone in 1 moment. Your microphone is unmuted and you will have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Ryan Panesewicz. I'm a senior at West Coast University. Firstly, I'd like to thank the DCA Director, Kirchmeier, for just relieving the tension for all the schools across the state during COVID-19. But I really want to direct my anger and all the students that, are in my class and across the state in the BRN's failure to act. The schools need flexibility to ensure timely graduation, and we want to assist in the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic. And just the lack of action has totally harmed students and forced programs to close and jeopardize public health. A group of us started a petition calling for the BRN to act, and it gained 137,000 signatures. And still the BRN's blaming schools and hospitals instead of themselves. Other BRNs in other states worked with governors to ensure the same thing. As students, this is our true first exposure to the BRN, and this is what we're going to take into our professional careers, is just a deep distrust in the BRN's ability to act in our best interest. I believe that the BRN can rebuild that by recognizing schools need total flexibility throughout 2021 as COVID is being managed, and working with nursing educators to craft how we're going to ensure that students graduate on time and acting emergently. So all the programs can remain open, and that this nursing shortage that California is notoriously known for is not exacerbated. So thank you so much for letting me speak.
Thank you. We will move on to the next individual member of the public who has identified that they would like to speak. Individual who has identified themselves as Brianna Ortiz. I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment. I'll remind you, you have 2 minutes to make your public statement. And Brianna Ortiz, your microphone is unmuted now.
My name is Brianna Ortiz, and I am also a senior student at West Coast University in my last semester. I currently work as a nursing assistant in the step-down unit at West Anaheim Medical Center. I also want to thank DCA Director Kirchmeier for being the one who forced the relief for the schools. On behalf of myself and my peers across the entire state of California, I also relay anger and delays with graduations and school closures due to the lack of timely action on the board's behalf to provide flexibility to schools to meet program objectives during the COVID-19 pandemic. Like my colleague Ryan said, while you failed to act, we did start a petition, she and I, calling for the BRN to lift regulations, and gained 137,000 signatures. Legislators and the public urge you guys to take action, yet instead of working with the governor quickly, you chose to finger point at schools and hospitals while programs were closing. The BRN is damaging to nursing education and public health during this time. The closure of programs for this academic year and the expected second wave of COVID in the fall will compound clinical displacement. Now is the time for the BRN to work with schools to extend the flexibility through 2020 and even 2021. As future RNs, we will continue to advocate for our students. Thank you.
This is the moderator. We will move on to the next individual who's expressed that they would like to make a comment. Ryan McPhee has an individual by identify themselves as Ryan McPhee has expressed that they would like to make a comment. I will be unmuting your mic. We'll be moving on to the next individual for public comment as we had trouble finding that individual in the list. We will circle back to see if Ryan McPhee rejoins the call to give that individual an opportunity to speak. I will move on to Robin Nelson. Robin Nelson, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment, and you will be able to address the board for 2 minutes. Robin, I am unmuting your microphone now.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Robin Nelson, Dean of the College of Nursing for West Coast University. And as has been said by many, I want to thank the DCA Director Kirschmeyer for working with the administration and stakeholders to provide a measure of flexibility that will allow students to progress. Also want to thank our nursing education consultant, Dr. Wayne Boyer, for his assistance. To the Board of Nursing, the focus on regulation and not on students has been very disappointing. The increase in the non-direct care percentage will not be a panacea. It is, of course, a positive step and a step forward, and has been said, it's one that many other states have as their norm. For those of you that have concerns about using simulation instead of direct care, I welcome an opportunity to provide board members a tour of our virtual hospital. And given that 519 clinical facilities said no to providing a clinical rotation, at least our students can master prioritization, delegation, and sequential thinking. The BRN should begin planning with educators now to ensure that programs can have maximum flexibility to meet program objectives and that students graduate on time and pass NCLEX. Now is the time to identify the inefficiencies learned from the waiver process and reduce the bureaucracies that take time away from academic priorities. Now is the time to plan to protect students and the public health by preventing future school closures and delayed graduations. Thank you.
This is the moderator. We'll move forward to the next individual who's expressed that they would like to make a comment. An individual who's identified themselves as Wanda Morris. Wanda, your microphone in a moment. You will have 2 minutes to make your comments. Wanda, I'm unmuting your microphone now.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to the board this morning. My name is Wanda Morris. I am the Director of Nursing at El Camino College, as well as the President-elect for COAD and South. We understand that the preference is to keep the direct versus the non-direct patient care experience ratio 50-50 in clinical learning experiences, as long as there are clinical placements available, which at this point there are not. That number has increased from 156 to 206. There are 21 California state universities, 4 UCs, and over 30 private universities with nursing programs. For many, the April 3rd, 2020 DCA order does not work for graduation or progression. For the community colleges in Southern California alone, 32 schools of nursing were queried regarding the impact of their waiver. Of these colleges surveyed, 81%, which is a number of 26, reported that their students would be unable to complete their semester on time and progress to the next semester. Only 50%, which is number of 16, of these same colleges reported that their scheduled 4-semester students would be able to graduate. Even more startling, and as of today, at least 10 California community colleges have suspended their nursing programs. It is anticipated that the trend will continue as schools run out of options. For 50% direct patient care,
10 seconds left.
Now required to meet clinical experience requirements. Most alarming is the fact that there will be a reduced graduation workforce in California at this time where healthcare facilities are stretched to the.
This is the moderator. I muted the member of the public's comment as it exceeded the 2 minutes. I will now move on to the next individual, an individual who's identified themselves as Linda Zorn. Linda Zorn, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment, and you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I will notify you once you've been unmuted. Linda Zorn, you are unmuted.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to make comment. I also represent COADN and CACN, and I really want to follow up with some of my colleagues' comments, particularly the the call to help, and we know the workforce is the driver behind much of this. And unfortunately, that isn't working for all of our students. As our students have tried to join the California Health Corps, they are told they're not needed now, and we're not sure when. And as you listen to the governor's noon press every day, he talks about we're flattening the curve. We're not sure when the surge is going to be. For example, in my county of residence, we have 1 hospitalization currently for COVID-19. So as we talk to our students, I know there have been many West Coast University students that have provided comment. From the California Community College perspective, our students want to graduate. For them, the best path to employment and the best path to help with this outbreak in the future and now and in the future is for them to graduate on time. And so as you have heard from others, we definitely feel the need to decrease that direct patient care down to 25%, give us more flexibility, allow the students to graduate. And again, we really look at what the students want. They want to complete their programs. They are far more interested in completing their programs than entering the workforce full-time right now. We're talking about in some of the Northern California counties, the surge being maybe mid-May, maybe later in May, with another surge in the fall. So if our students are able to graduate this spring, that will help out this crisis even better. So we're thankful for the 50% at this point in time, but it's not enough for all students to be able to graduate on time. And that is what they want to do. They want to graduate on time and then enter the workforce. So we hear you on the workforce need. We hear you on the call to help goal. And the best way that we can answer that goal is to get our students to graduate on time. And we need much more flexibility in the clinical experience. So again, thank you for the opportunity to make comment.
This is the moderator. We'll move on to the next individual who's expressed that they would like to make a comment. Individual has identified themselves as Ryan McElhaney. Ryan McElhaney, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment. I'll remind Ryan that he has 2 minutes to make his comments. Ryan, I am unmuting your microphone now.
Good morning, President D'Angelo, Vice President Gerber, and other members of the Board of Registered Nursing. My name is Ryan McElhaney, and I'm the Acting Director of Government Relations for the Community College League of California, the trade association that represents California's 73 community college districts and 115 colleges. For context, we're as if you took COADN, narrowed it down to community colleges, but then expanded the scope for the entire campus. I'm here today to testify in support of our nursing programs. Almost uniformly across the state, they'll be forced to reduce, cut, or eliminate their programs unless the Board of Registered Nursing provides them the temporary flexibility they need to respond to this crisis. So therefore, I ask the members to support our programs and our students. If not, we fear that we will face a reduction of the nursing workforce pipeline during the time of a global pandemic. And so we ask that you listen to the practitioners in the field. Thank you, and thank you for your time.
Moderator, before we move on to the next member of the public who wanted to make a comment, I just wanted to provide a couple of quick reminders. If you would like to make a comment, please insert comment time requested, or I would like to make a comment in the question and answer box for call on you. And also, if an individual does not have a microphone, you can utilize the audio call-in option by selecting at the top of your screen, communicate, and then audio connection. You can access the call-in number in that manner. If you would like to utilize a phone to call in, by going through that process, it will link your name to your phone so that we can unmute you and you can speak through your phone. I will now move on to the next member of the public who's represented. They would like to make a comment. An individual who's identified themselves as Sharon Goldfarb. With Sharon, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment. Sharon, your microphone's unmuted.
Hi, I am the president of COADN North and also the Dean of Health Sciences at College of Marin. I just watched a documentary about the 1918 flu pandemic on the American experience. The #1 reason that someone who got the flu would survive that pandemic was nursing care. It is, as I struggle with 8 deaths in my community in New York of people who have just died in the last 72 hours, I am telling you, mobilizing the nursing workforce will save lives. Now, not only do we not have any clinical partners for our students, we have 10 students who have extenuating circumstances, one who has cancer, one who is lacking a spleen, one who has severe asthma. And you can't tell me that these students who are unable to put themselves at risk for COVID because of underlying health conditions cannot continue their nursing education. So I implore you, for the good of California, for the good of our students, for maximum flexibility. We are experienced nurses, we are experienced educators, and we want to educate our students fully, and please give us the power to do so holistically for each student. Thank you.
This is the moderator. We'll move on to the next member of the public who has represented they'd like to make a comment. Individual has identified themselves as Samantha Lacey. Samantha Lacey, I will be unmuting your microphone in just a moment. You'll have 2 minutes to make your comments. Samantha, I'm unmuting your microphone now.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for letting me speak. I just wanted to give, I'm due to graduate in May, hopefully, from Mission College in Santa Clara, California. And this is an unprecedented time and in extraordinary circumstances. But we students, we need to graduate. We've been flexible with the structure of education, the change to distance learning, and all our classes are trying desperately to graduate, and nurses are to be creative and adjust to meet the demand, the crisis head on. And I think that's what we're really expecting from our board of nursing, is for you guys to be flexible, be creative, do what is necessary to help us graduate, to get into the workforce. Technology is our tool to safely educate and to graduate the nurses of 2020. Thank you so much.
This is the moderator. We'll move on to the next individual who's represented. They would like to make a comment. The individual is identified by the initials AG. So AG, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment. AG, I am unmuting your microphone now. You'll have 2 minutes to make your comments.
Hello, I'm a senior nursing student that has readily volunteered by serving the state of California by fearlessly joining the frontline testing for COVID-19. Please know many nursing students are ready to join the fight against this virus, but have been met with continuous resistance by the BRN. Please support and allow for reasonable and fair measures to be instituted for our future nurses, and know that I will continue to be part of the movement to help myself and my other teammates graduate. Thank you, and thank you for your time.
This is the moderator. We'll now move on to the next individual who's represented that they would like to make a comment. Individual is identified as a KT Waxman. I will unmute your microphone in just a moment. KT Waxma, your microphone is now being unmuted. You'll have 2 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I have been a simulation healthcare educator since 2005, and I represent the California Simulation Alliance, and I'm also a member of the NEWAC committee. I recommend that the NEWAC investigate changes in regulation or advisory informational resources. There is strong evidence to support that simulation can replace the clinical experience. The BRN may struggle with how to define simulation, as it is not all mannequin-based. Other states have had success and positive outcomes using simulation. We need to use this methodology to help our students meet learning objectives in order to progress in their programs and to graduate. We need maximum flexibility now. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to the next individual who has identified that they'd like to make a comment. Individuals identified themselves as an Audrey Sutanto. Audrey, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment. You will have 2 minutes to address the board. Audrey, your microphone is unmuted.
Hello, good morning. My name is Audrey Sutanto, and I'm a student at ACC Los Angeles. Thank you to DCA Director Kirschmeyer for providing schools flexibility. Allowing schools to increase the hours of simulated education they can offer to 50% is a welcome relief. Unfortunately, COVID-19 will continue to compound displacements past June 30th and throughout 2021. As a result, without relaxing the requirements of 1426, which requires direct patient care, some schools have and will have to pause the education of nurses. We all want in-person clinical experiences, but until we can get them, please do not stop our education. Now is the time to identify inefficiencies learned from this waiver process, standardize forms, and reduce bureaucracies that takes time away from academic priorities. California can ill afford not to have all of its nurses graduate on time this year. Now is the time to plan to protect students and the public health by preventing future school closures and delayed graduations. Every day lost in this decision-making process are potential lives lost. Thank you for listening.
This is the moderator. Board members, that concludes the individuals who represented they'd like to make public comment. So the public comment period for items 4 and 5 has concluded.
PRN moderator, thank you very much. Thank you all for your public comments. At this time, we have comments from Board's Attorney Reza and Acting Executive Officer Loretta Melby.
Good morning. This is Board Counsel Reza Pezhuhesh. Thank you to all the members of the public who commented. I just wanted to take just a brief moment to provide a bit of clarification on 1 or 2 points. The need to respond to this crisis and provide some flexibility is not lost on the board, to say the least. However, first point of clarification is that the board must act within the framework of existing statutes and regulations. And in order to allow any flexibility, those must be enforced or changed. In order to change a regulation, there's a process that must be gone through, and we'll be discussing that in a subsequent agenda item regarding proposed regulatory change. The only other way that the current requirements could be modified is under the authority through the governor's executive order to the director of DCA to make waivers. Otherwise, the BRN must abide by the laws that are on the books. As to the waiver, I just wanted to provide a point of clarification that the governor's executive order was implemented on, I believe, March 30th, and the waiver from the DCA director regarding clinical hours was executed and issued April 3rd. I believe that makes it 4 days, less than a week, from the date that the director was granted authority to the date that the director issued a waiver granting additional flexibility regarding clinical hours. Now, I've heard a lot of comments thanking the director and directing anger at the Board of Registered Nursing, and I just want to make it clear that not to take anything at all away from Director Kirschmeyer. However, that waiver was not done in spite of the Board of Registered Nursing. It was done in consultation and collaboration with the Board of Registered Nursing. The board played an active part in the development of that. So to those who think that that waiver was in spite of the board's inaction and the board's refusal to allow anything to change, that's simply a mistaken belief. Thank you.
This is Loretta Melby, the Acting Executive Officer, and I wanted to thank you guys all for your comments. I really appreciate hearing the feedback. They are echoing exactly what has been filling up my email box for the last And we hear you guys. We hear every single one of you. We also hear our currently licensed RNs. We hear people from the public that are calling in, asking us to keep the training that has been tried and true. The curriculum that is being criticized is the exact curriculum that have prepared the heroes that are at our front line, that are fighting this virus and putting themselves at risk as they're saving lives of patients. So I want that to be very clear. In Southern California, one of our local hospitals has laid off 221 employees for 3 weeks because they do not have the census to allow them to continue to work. The nurses that are at the hospitals right now are being trained up to take on this battle. They're being trained, they're being pulled from PACU, they're being pulled from OR, from pre-op, they're being pulled from the clinics, and they're being trained to take care of ventilators, to learn how to use ECMO, to manage 12 drips that need titrated frequently. And we need to be patient to allow for that to happen. There is a larger picture than just graduation. However, graduation and progression through the course and your program is incredibly important. We know that this is a lifelong journey and a goal and something that you guys have been dreaming about for your entire life. Therefore, we are taking action. We do hear you, and we are doing the best we can within the confines of our regulation. We are looking at our processes every day, and we hope to be able to help as many people successfully progress through the program, to graduate, to pass their NCLEX, to become the licensed and safe healthcare practitioner that California is proud of. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Board's Counsel Reza and Acting Executive Officer Loretta Melby for your comments, and thank all the public for their comments. We want to maintain that we are a transparent organization and that we want to work with our stakeholders and our members in order to provide the best nurses for California, the best nurses, and we want to be able to protect the public. Seeing no other public comments at this time, we're going to move along to item 6.0, report of the Administrative Committee. And there'll be item 6.1, discussion and possible action regarding regulatory modification in California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 1426, to permit increased clinical practice hours not in direct patient care during a declared state of emergency. And at this time, I'd like to turn this over to our Vice President, Donna Gerber, since she's the legislative person.
Hi, this is Donna. Thank you, President Jackson. And actually, this agenda item, I think, fits quite nicely with the previous discussion that we had and the comments that we heard from the public. I want to put this particular item in context for both current board members as well as members of the public. This came out of our March meeting on March 12th of this year. The board had a regular committee meeting, and during that time, there were members of the public who addressed the board on this subject, the subject we've been talking about, but they addressed it under the section called items not on the board agenda. And as you've heard from our legal counsel, when members of the public address an item that's not on the agenda, the board members are unable legally to either question or comment on that item. And that is what happened on March 12th. And we heard from some of the same people that we've heard from today as to the problems that were at that time just beginning. I think maybe a few days or perhaps a week before March 12th, is when the hospitals, really without notice to the BRN, but they started closing down to nursing schools and nursing students. So that did occur on March 12th, and it may have appeared to anybody who was in our meeting that we didn't listen. That's not true. What happened basically is that day, that evening before we left San Diego, President Jackson and myself had a meeting with our legal counsel, Ann Salisbury at that moment, and we made a plan to move forward with a potential emergency regulation. By emergency, in this case, what I'm referring to is we decided that it would be good for us to try to make a regulatory change. We knew that in order to make any impact on what was being presented to us, that we would have to go through the regulatory process, as you have now been advised. And there are two ways to go through that process. You can go through it in the regular fashion, and it can be quite time consuming, or you can attempt to go through it in an emergency fashion. And that's what we determined at that time. So that was on March 12th. By the 16th, which I think was the following Monday, we actually had draft language for such an emergency regulation. And in the materials that are attached to this agenda is that draft. That emergency regulation would have modified the clinical direct patient care requirement to 50%. That is exactly what we were being asked to do when members of the public came forward on March 12th. Now, as it turned out, of course, lots was going on, lots of things were happening. Either students or faculty members or schools were interacting both with the board, with the governor's office, with the legislature, with just about anybody once we were full-blown into what was going to be a situation where students were having trouble getting their clinical placements. So what happened time-wise is that the administrative committee, Mr. Jackson and I, were working with BRN staff on this emergency regulation. We were even at that time unable to speak about it directly with other board members, or we would have been violating the open meeting requirements of the law. But we had worked up this draft language almost simultaneously. Then the governor took the actions that he took, issued the executive order that came out on March 30th, and from then on gave the DCA director actual authority to waive regulations. So the immediate problem or the immediate need that we felt on March 12th for an emergency regulatory process was made moot. However, it has become obvious to us that it would be better for future boards in future either pandemics or disasters, whether it be an earthquake or a fire or whatever happens in California. It would be better for any future board to have some built-in flexibility so that we are not put in the position that we found ourselves in, and that many of you felt that we were being inflexible because we were constrained by existing regulation. So today's item on the agenda, 6.1, is intended to deal not with the current situation, because currently we have a waiver process in place, but in fact to deal with being more properly set up for future possible disasters where a governor would declare an emergency. And so what we are now suggesting to the board for action today, and I'm going to make a motion, and then there will be the opportunity for public comment on that before we vote. But basically, the idea is that we want to request to the board today from the administrative committee that we direct staff going forward to work with the administrative committee to further refine what a regulation for flexibility might look like. The draft in front of you is not being voted on today. The draft was just to give you the draft that we had put together as an emergency regulation. But we feel that we will learn a lot from this current situation. We've learned a lot already. And that therefore it would be good for us to begin working on a permanent regulation change that would provide future boards with reasonable flexibility should there be similar kinds of issues or disasters. So with that, that would be my motion going forward and presented to the board at this time. I do want to say one other thing. You know, our nursing education consultants have really been thrust into the middle of a firestorm, not to use a pun, with this situation. And I just, on a personal level, I know President Jackson and I really want to thank them for hanging in there and having, you know, the kind of professionalism and flexibility and tenacity and commitment in terms of doing their jobs. We're all being affected by this crisis in many, many ways. There is a lot of anxiety and a lot of tension in our world right now, and certainly in the world of the BRN as it revolves around both our licensees and the nursing programs that we're dealing with. So I want to thank everyone who's made a comment here or even made a comment prior to now. The constructive comments have really been helpful. They've assisted all of us in trying to really think through what are rational solutions and appropriate solutions that still protect the consumer public, which is the charge to the Board of Registered Nursing. So, President Jackson, with that, I would put forth that motion. I can repeat it if you want me to.
No, you don't need to repeat it. I second your motion, and I'd like to reiterate that the board members are not allowed from the administrative committee to have these discussions with other board members. Is that correct, Reza? The board's counsel, are you on the line?
Yes, sorry, took a second to unmute. Just for the benefit of the public, the law said it's the Open Meeting Act requires that the board not discuss board business and take action on such outside of a publicly noticed board meeting. That's what we're doing today. That's what these meetings are largely about. So that's correct, President Jackson. Outside of a publicly noticed board meeting, the full board can't discuss these items and take action on them.
And you just joined us too, right at the beginning of the month. Is that correct, Reza?
That's correct. It's been a few weeks now.
It's been a few weeks. So you were just basically taking report over from Ann Salisbury and picking up where she was leaving off from the administrative committee. This is why that the administrative committee is not allowed to have discussions outside the administrative committee with other board members. The waivers have been in place for almost 3 weeks now. So the other board members have that information because that was sent out by the executive officer. So that information is out there, correct?
I'm sorry,
the waivers. The waivers, it's been on their website for almost 3 weeks now, correct?
Michael, let me correct that. This is Loretta, the acting executive officer, and they've been out for 2 weeks tomorrow. The waivers were posted on Friday the 3rd that addresses the clinical hours. And to note that Friday the 3rd was just 3 weeks after our education licensing committee meeting that was held in San Diego. And so that's what the timeline is if you're referring to that.
Thank you very much. And there's a first and a second to item 6.1. Are there any board comments at this time?
Board Chairman, this is Ken Marlborough. Can you just clarify and restate the motion that we're voting on, please?
Donna, would you restate the motion?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. This would authorize the administrative committee to work with staff to further refine a regulation for flexibility and then bring that back to the full board.
Okay, thank you very much.
Are there any more comments from the board members? Not hearing any other comments from the board members. BRN moderator, are there any public comments for item 6.1?
Thank you, Board President. This is the moderator. I will open up the question and answer panel now so that members of the public can express if they'd like to make a comment. It is now open. I will remind members of the public that if they would like to make a comment, they can do so by indicating that I would like to make a comment or comment time requested in the question box. At that point, I will call on you and you will have 2 minutes to make a comment. I see that we have a few individuals who would like to make public comments, so I will call individuals now. The first individual is identified by the initials L and S. So I will call on that individual in just a moment and remind you that you have 2 minutes to make your comments. And at that point, I will mute your microphone. So LS, your microphone is unmuted.
My name is LaShonda Shannon, and I'm an analyst with the California Board of Registered Nursing. Everything that the board members just communicated about what they were working on, things that were in the works, why wasn't that communicated to the public? A board meeting could have been called to relay information to stakeholders, but you chose not to do so. Just in February, the board called a meeting on Wednesday to talk about canceling a meeting on Thursday, but yet we have excuse after excuse as to why things couldn't be done because it would be a violation of the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. You also thank the nursing education consultants, yet the nursing education consultants themselves have said in public emails that their opinions mean less than nothing to the acting executive officer and the board members. In talking about only increasing simulation to 50% during a state of emergency it's not acceptable. Simulation-based clinical education is a useful approach that provides nursing students with opportunities to practice their clinical and decision-making skills through varied real-life situational experiences without compromising the patient's well-being. Simulation creates transformational learning experience for nursing students and provides diverse perspectives on caring for patients across the continuum of care. Learning in simulation allows for situated cognition or learning in context, which is the concept right now at the forefront of contemporary education reform. Further, the National Council of State Boards of Nursing provides a study that shows evidence up to 50% of simulation can be effectively substituted for traditional clinical experience in all pre-licensure core nursing courses under conditions comparable to those described in the study. There are national best practices and guidelines for implementing simulation. Our regulation should reflect current data, nursing, and education research. California should be leading the nation, but instead the board is only serving the vested interest of one association, irrespective of the adverse consequences for the state of California. Thank you for your time.
All right, I will move on to the next individual who's expressed that they would like to make a public comment. An individual who's identified themselves as Garrett Chan. Garrett Chan, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. Garrett, your microphone is unmuted.
Thank you to the board and to the acting executive officer for this opportunity. I have 2 questions and then 3 comments. Question number 1 is, can the legal counsel clarify that this process or this proposal will go through the regulatory promulgation process as outlined by DCA? Question 2 is, how can we provide our letters of comments similar to when these meetings are done in person? So in prior meetings, we've been able to write a letter and then present it to the board for consideration and into the record. So how is that process going to be handled in light of this meeting? And then 3 comments. Letter 3A in the proposal, in light of the question, I believe that adding an additional 25% is not enough based on the previous comments. Letter number 3B, too many administrative burdens that are outlined in 3B. If we're going to be talking about a disaster, all of our usual processes are going to be completely disrupted. And so asking academic institutions as well as hospitals and other clinical sites to meet these requirements where our attention should be focused on response to the disaster is going to be perhaps unrealistic. And then 3D, again, if our processes are going to be disrupted, it's unclear whether having the NECs approve everything in a major disaster will be feasible. So I'd ask the board to reconsider these 3 comments. Thank you.
All right. Before I move on to the next, sorry, something to say?
This is Reza Pejrahesh, Board Counsel. If I caught the question correctly, the first was whether the regulatory action would go through the usual process in the Administrative Procedure Act. That's what I took away from the question, and the answer is yes, that would go through the Administrative Procedure Act process. As to the second question, if I understood correctly, was regarding how to submit comments. I'm not sure whether the intention was to ask about submitting comments specifically to the proposed regulatory action or comments in general. If you're talking about the regulatory action, either way, actually, I believe you can contact the board, send an email, send a letter. That will be distributed as appropriate. If you're speaking about comments regarding the regulatory action, the Administrative Procedure Act process for rulemaking contains a 45-day public comment period after the initial rulemaking documents are published and made available to the public. And at that time, members of the public can submit comments for consideration of the board to be incorporated into the decision-making on that rulemaking action.
Okay, thank you, legal counsel. This is the moderator. We will move on to the next individual, make public comment in just a moment. I would remind members of the public that the Q&A feature is utilized solely for you to express that you would like to make a comment. It at which time I will unmute your microphone so that you can make the comment. If you do not have a microphone on your computer, you can utilize your telephone device to call in to the meeting as well by from your computer monitor selecting communicate and then selecting audio connection to follow through so that you...
BRN moderator?
Yes.
Imelda Seja Buckowitz, she appears to have dropped off the call.
Thank you. Let me pause for one moment to see if we can remedy that. This is the moderator. She is also not in the attendee list for me to promote her up to the same privileges as other board members. I will pause for a moment for direction on whether we should call Imelda and get her connected back, or if we should proceed with public comment. Legal counsel or acting executive officer, do you have direction on this matter?
This is Reza, legal counsel. I'd suggest pausing a moment to see if we can find out what the issue is, if it doesn't possibly get her on the line quickly, and if it seems like it's taking longer than that, then we can go from there.
Thank you. I will follow up with our technical folks who are assisting members, and I will check in a moment. Board members, just wanted to let folks know that Imelda is attempting to log back in now. So I would suggest just pausing for a few more moments while we allow her time to do that. moderator, in working with member state reconnected. We think she's probably about 5 to 10 minutes away from getting reconnected. I just wanted to share that information in case there was an update to the direction regarding what we do with the current public comment period. To chime in and let folks know that we are waiting a board member to get connected to the meeting. So there is no conversation going on at the present time. We will read. I wanted to mention as well, this is the moderator, that we will restart public comment once the board meeting recommences upon the board member rejoining. And anyone who has submitted a request for public comment, we have your request for a public comment on item number 6, and we will start back up in unmuting people's microphones in the order they are received. Thank you.
BRN moderator, I'd like to take a 10-minute recess because we've been going for 2 hours now, and then pick back up in about 10 minutes.
Thank you. We'll be in recess.
However, I will request that in the future, near future, that any such discussion, whether we have a special meeting, I would like to keep appraised of what's going on. I think it's imperative for the rest of the board to know ahead of time what's going on behind closed doors. So I do request that if there's any business that you cannot discuss with a group, that we schedule a closed session meeting. Thank you.
This is board council. Just briefly want to, just briefly want to respond to that. Imelda, I certainly understand the desire to stay in the loop, and that totally makes sense. The ability to call a closed session is limited, and it has to fall under one of certain prescribed subsections in the Open Meeting Act. And so to be able to discuss these things, it has to be in an open meeting, which I understand kind of limits the board's ability to, proceed as expeditiously as it would like, but that's the constraint that we're under.
I totally understand.
The board has some options. I'm sure.
I totally understand, but
yeah.
I would ask that every attempt may be made possible. And I know that we're under constraints with time, but I do insist that that everything possible be made so the board can meet. And I understand the rules and regulations. Again, I'm just asking for this board to please make every attempt with our limitations and regulations to keep us appraised of current issues. Again, we are in the community. People are contacting us, and if we don't know, it makes us all look bad. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson, this is Trandy Phillips, and I'd like to make a comment.
Board Member Phillips, go ahead with your comment.
I'd like our attorney to clarify, since we've had this request from Ms. Abakowitz, exactly what process we will have to go through to legally have an open meeting to discuss something that's changed. What would we have to do, since he's now indicated we can't do that in a closed meeting? Thank you.
This is board counsel. If I understand the question correctly, you're asking what is the process and what are the requirements for the board to be able to discuss and consider regulatory proposal, and how that works. With the motion that was made, I think that the concept was to further consider and refine the regulatory proposal. Before any action is taken on that, of course, the board would need to consider it and deliberate and provide input. So the board would, I presume, after the admin committee is comfortable with the proposal, of course, before that proposal ever becomes anything formal, it would be brought before the board in an open meeting. The board would consider and make recommendations. It would proceed in that way, and it would proceed in that way. So if the board is comfortable with it, then make a motion to adopt to approve, I should say, the regulatory language that's proposed by the admin committee. Of course, once the board approves that language, that's the beginning of the Administrative Procedure Act's rulemaking process, which takes still quite a bit of time. If the board has concerns with the proposal that the admin committee develops, then they will make their concerns known, and the board will deliberate as a whole and ultimately hash out whatever their concerns are and make a vote to come to some kind of a consensus on what the direction should be on that regulatory proposal. So it may be something that could be done in one board meeting if the admin committee comes back with something that the board as a whole is comfortable with. On the other hand, it may take several iterations, but that's the process. Does that help answer the question? Do you have any additional questions?
I do. I wasn't questioning. I was just, this is for future reference. I'm okay with the recommendations by Donna Gerbert. I was just making a comment, a recommendation for future action items.
This is Randy Phillips.
Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, go ahead, Elizabeth. I'll defer. You go ahead.
During these times of emergencies and the things that have been going on now with the virus, are you saying there is no way for the entire board to meet in a executive session? Am I making my question? Is it not clear? Now that I say it, it may not be clear.
This is Reza. So again, the board, in order for the entire board to discuss these items, it has to be in a publicly noticed meeting, unless you call the meeting under the provisions of the emergency meeting, which still requires that we put a notice out. We've got to operate under the technical constraints in the Open Meeting Act. So the board can't, as a whole, or even amongst individual members, aside from the admin advisory committee, discuss this offline. You can't have serial communications about this proposal amongst the board members, with the idea behind that, the rationale being that these discussions are to be conducted under the light of day, with the public having the opportunity to observe and participate in these discussions. So I think in answering your question, the board would have to call a meeting in order to discuss these things. Of course, you can call a meeting under the ordinary provisions of the Open Meeting Act. You have to give 10 days notice, or there are provisions to allow us under certain circumstances, if we meet a certain threshold, to call an emergency meeting on shortened notice. But in any event, it needs to take place in a noticed meeting.
It needs to be noticed, but it doesn't have to be public.
It does have to be public. No, I'm
sorry.
Off the top of my head, I said off the top of my head, I'm not sure that that discussion of a regulatory proposal like this would qualify for one of the provisions allowing a closed session. So it would be an open session meeting.
Well, I'm not. My question is not so much about this proposal. I'm talking about in general, where we've had emergency situations and modifications made to clinical requirements. I'm talking about something like that with an emergency situation. Is it not possible to have a closed session of the board?
So a couple things. First of all, we have to limit our discussion to what is on the agenda. And of course, the question about having meetings to discuss this regulatory proposal is certainly within the scope of what we can discuss. If an instance arose where there was a need to call a meeting that was not otherwise scheduled, I would suggest reaching out to board staff and myself, and we can consider the options for calling a noticed meeting, whether under an open session or closed session.
Okay. I think that answers my question. Thank you.
Certainly.
BRN moderator, can we return to the public comments, please?
Chairman Jackson, this is Ken Marlborough. I just have a question for legal, if that's okay, sir.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. Risa, one of the questions that I have is we received this document that we're getting ready, not to vote on the document, but to vote on the process on the 14th, which was Tuesday, along with 243 other pages of documentation to prepare for this meeting. My question to you, I've sat on boards, not necessarily with the particular act that the state goes, but the Brown Act. There is nothing wrong with the board receiving draft documentations earlier. And let me back up. I respect the hard work that the administrative committee is doing. I know they're working hard, and I just want to be in a position to help more, whether that is to provide opinions or what have you. And I know you can't do it except in a public setting, but I'd like to be a little bit more prepared in order to do so. And so my question to you is, since we know they've been working on this since March 12th, and that's not to say it had been ready, the document would have been ready by the next day, but I would wish that we would receive this documentation in a draft form, but we can't opine on it, but we can study it to be prepared when that time comes. Is there anything wrong with that?
First of all, I'm being told my connection, my audio is a little spotty. I apologize. I will be switching my audio to the call in to try to address that. If folks are not able to make out what I'm saying, please let me know and I'll do that right away. But to respond to that question, or that the point that's made rather, certainly well noted. The more time that we can give to members of the board and to the public by providing meeting materials as early as possible, that is certainly board staff's goal. There are, of course, a lot of things at play that sometimes limit the ability to do that. And that's probably about as much as I could say. The proposal here, it's been, as you were told, ongoing for a few weeks now, but it's kind of changed from an emergency proposal to considering whether it was necessary to a regular rulemaking. And so there were a number of considerations. And of course, the point is well taken that the more time we can give, the better. And I think that that's something staff already tried to make happen. Putting together a meeting like this, especially under the current circumstances, there's a lot of scrambling that takes place that occurs behind the scenes just to even get this put together. And so I believe staff are doing the best they can to facilitate and get these things out. And I'm sure that they will attempt to get materials out sooner than later.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And again, I want to reiterate that I appreciate the hard work that the administrative committee is doing. I just want to be in a better position to help them. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from board members? If not, we will continue on with public comment.
This is the moderator. We'll continue on with public comment that was started just before we went into recess. I have all of the requests from the members of the public who had represented that they would like to speak, even those who did so before the recess. So I will proceed in order. The next individual whose microphone I will be unmuting to make public comment for 2 minutes will be an individual identifying themselves as Sandy Melton. Sandy Melton, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment, and you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I will give you a verbal cue once I have unmuted your microphone. Sandy Melton, your microphone is unmuted.
Vice President Gerber, thank you for allowing me to present of COADN South. I appreciate your motion, and I think it's necessary for future emergencies, but it won't help us for this emergency now. When the pandemic initially started at the beginning of March, we felt that the decrease to 50% direct patient care relief would be enough. From the data presented that you heard this morning, and I just want to reiterate that. I queried 32 schools of nursing. 81% would not be able to complete their semesters on time, and only 50% of these colleges would be able to graduate their fourth semester students. We're asking for your proactive voice with DCA to assist us in providing relief that we need in graduating and progressing our students. With this barrier also on the waiver, we were required to contact all facilities that may accept our students within 50 miles. I believe this was burdensome and unnecessary for directors to do. When this national emergency began at the beginning of the month, ACEN, our national accrediting agency, sent me a letter and said, do whatever you need to do that is reasonable. Directors of nursing programs are wise and reasonable. We know what needs to be done for our students to meet their clinical competencies and end-of-program student learning outcomes. We're asking that you use your
10 seconds.
proactive voice with the Department of Consumer Affairs to provide the relief that we need, that we can graduate and progress our students. Denials to students totaled 206. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the moderator. We will move on to the next individual who has expressed that they would like to make a comment. Individual identifying themselves as Sharon Goldfarb will be, your microphone will be unmuted in a moment. Sharon? You'll have 2 minutes to make your comments. Sharon, I'm unmuting your microphone now.
Hi, Sharon Goldfarb, President, COADN North. I want to applaud Donna for asking for some changes, and I want to applaud President Jackson for talking about the BRN having a culture of transparency. I really hope that these are things that go forward. I can tell you that I have talked to the schools in the North, and at this point, only 2 schools have BRN approved telenursing programs to continue. The majority of schools are not going forward. But as you have so said, Donna, about that you guys had meetings, kind of closed meetings, and that your stakeholders had no idea what was going on. We can only act in a way to support our students. And I am telling you that I am working 18-hour days, 7 days a week. My husband is scared I'm going to have a heart attack. And if you don't partner with us and join us and look at your regulations and be transparent, it really will result in people's lives. And if your mission is the safety and welfare of California, supporting nursing schools with the fullest flexibility is the only way you will be fulfilling your mission. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the moderator. We will now move on to the next individual who has identified that they would like to make a comment. This individual has identified themselves as Robin Nelson. Robin Nelson, I will be unmuting your microphone. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Robin, I am unmuting your microphone now.
Thank you. On March 30, Governor Newsom issued Executive Order N3920, which allows DCA to waive any of the professional licensing requirements relating to the Nurse Practice Act, including the education and training requirements. The governor's executive order gives room for flexible, more direct, and swift action. And as the Dean of the College of Nursing for West Coast University, I have to ask, why is this board not taking advantage of this order? But instead, the board is hiding behind the Administrative Procedure Act process to make some unknown regulatory change 45 to 60 days down the road. We heard today that 10 community colleges have closed their doors on their nursing programs, and more are certainly to follow. And I have to ask again, why isn't the BRN taking advantage of the governor's executive order? The idea of passing regulations to deal with future crisis is incredible. And additional regulations not necessary. The board needs to constructively use the executive order that it has at its disposal. Schools are closing their programs, and thousands of nurses will not graduate, and this board is doing nothing to deal with the current crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the BRN moderator. I'm going to move on to the next individual who has a comment. I will remind members of the public that in order to make a comment, please type comment time requested, or I would like to make a comment in the question, and make sure that it's directed at all panelists. Also, if you have a computer that does not have a microphone, you can select communicate from the top of your WebEx web event, and select audio connection and switch to a call-in audio connection if you would like to make a comment. Moving on, I will move on to an individual who's identified themselves as RN by the initials RN. Individual identified by those initials, I'm unmuting your microphone now, and you will be able to have 2 minutes to make your public comments. Your microphone is unmuted, individual identified by initials RN.
Thank you. So with all the disruptions that COVID has caused in all aspects of daily life, I'm troubled because it seems like some people in this room feel that their processes, and I'm talking about nursing education here, should be allowed to move forward with no inconvenience or trouble to them or need to adapt. This crisis is a challenge. It's not a time to throw up your hands, throw standards out the window, and look for someone to blame. It is a time to show your stripes as an educator, administrator, prospective nurse. So if you're an administrator who complains you can't find clinical placement for your vulnerable students because of COVID, how were you planning on doing that in a non-COVID time? Do your job to serve that student and get them the experience they need. If you don't do the work to creatively find clinical experience for your students, or you try to get your students clinical hours at a food bank or Meals on Wheels, and now you blame the BRN for blocking volunteers when you actually know that it's you, not the BRN, who is the one refusing to grant them educational credit for those creative, non-traditional clinical hours. Well, you and I both know who's blocking your students' progress. Do your job and go to bat for your students. If you are a student who just wants to graduate, I get that. You're one of the 4,000 students who paid $150 grand to go to school at West Coast University. But what will happen when you graduate and have to pass the NCLEX? When you fail that because your education was rushed, who are you going to blame? You finally pass it, and now you're subject to full-on disciplinary hearings if you make a mistake because your education was rushed. Who are you going to blame on that? Students, you are the consumer. The Department of Consumer Affairs is tasked to protect. You are buying an education. You must insist on a quality product.
10 seconds.
If you choose to put your professional and personal integrity on pause, you are choosing to be a victim of COVID. I want to thank the BRN for being an adult in the room and holding the line on the standards of nursing education, protecting students and the public.
The 2-minute period expired, so I muted the last participant. I believe it was the conclusion of the individual's comments anyway. I will move on to the next individual who's represented that they would like to make a comment. Individual who's identified as Judy Corliss. Judy Corliss, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment, and you will be able to speak. So you have 2 minutes. I'm unmuting your microphone now, Judy Corliss.
Hi. Well, once again, I would like to ask the board members if they would consider using the NUAC committee's work and recommendations for the last several years. I believe they were supposed to meet in April, and that committee is the Nurse Education Workforce Advisory Committee. They have a lot of these things work for you that they've been working on, including the justification of simulation. So if you could take that work. I know Katie Doherty is on that committee. Janine Graves sits on that. She was our prior BRN president under my term from 2009 to 2012. A lot of work has already been done, so you don't have to reinvent them, and then add to what it is we need for these emergency situations. And one last comment to the prior speaker, the nursing educators are doing everything they can. They cannot help that the clinical side's all shut down. That is not the nurse educators, is not their fault. The schools cannot. So I don't know if he is apprised of that, but it's a very serious for our students. They are working day and night, and I'm seeing it and working with them. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. This is the moderator. We'll move on to the next individual for public comment. An individual who's identified by the name Linda Zorn. Individual identified as Linda Zorn, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Linda Zorn, I'm unmuting your microphone now.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to address this issue as well. While I agree with my colleagues, it is unfortunate that at this point in time you are not looking at doing anything about the current situation with these regulations. I want to comment moving forward, as is this proposal on the table. Many of us have lived through disasters, and there's going to be more to come. We're going to have wildfires, floods, whatever in California. So I encourage you, when you look at this new disaster-based regulation, you allow for maximum flexibility. Simply decreasing to 50% in this particular crisis, we all know is not enough. So moving forward, it will probably be the same. So I encourage to allow our wise and knowledgeable faculty and program directors to use what they know best to meet the student learning outcomes. So please, as you move forward, maximum flexibility is going to be needed as we move into more of these kinds of situations. So again, thank you for the opportunity to comment. We wish we could have more flexibility in this current crisis. That does not seem to be the case. So moving forward, please look at maximum flexibility so that our students can complete their programs on time and graduate. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the moderator. We'll now move on to the next individual to make a public comment. It is an individual identifying themselves as Scott Casanova. So Scott Casanova, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment for you to make a public comment, at which time you'll have 2 minutes. Scott Casanova, I'm unmuting your microphone now.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Based on the board's internal chatter just prior to public comment, I wanted to make sure that the board fully understood that the governor's executive order allows you to work with DCA to waive any of the professional licensing requirements required under the Nursing Practice Act, including education and training requirements. And what I want to ask the board is, why are they not taking advantage of that order, but instead hiding behind the APA process to make some unknown change 45 to 60 days down the road? Reza, as you admitted just a few minutes ago, this process takes quite a bit of time. And the entire point of the governor's order was to enable this board to make immediate and decisive action. Instead, what you're voting on now is a half measure that solves nothing related to the existing crisis, and you're spending time focusing on some unknown crisis years down the road, while at the same time blaming non-existent APA limitation on the board's refusal to act. It makes no sense. The board's stubbornness on this point is unfortunately consistent with this board's overall attempt to limit nursing schools enrollments, which it has done so illegally and without legitimate APA process for years now. Now, with a genuine emergency with lives at stake requiring more nurses, this board is feebly blaming the APA for its own bad policies. We've already heard today that 10 community colleges have closed their doors to their nursing programs, and many more schools are going to follow. I want to ask this board, how many nursing programs have to close before the Board of Nursing takes
10 seconds
on the governor's executive order? Additional regulations not necessary. The board just has to use the executive order at its disposal.
This is the moderator. We'll move on to the next individual who's identified that they would like to make a comment. Individual who has identified themselves as Carrie Martin. We will be unmuting your microphone next. So member of the public, Carrie Martin. I will be unmuting your microphone in just a moment. And reminder, you have 2 minutes to address the board. Carrie Martin, your microphone is unmuted now.
Okay, thank you. So with the max flexibility moving forward, that is great. But again, in the current situation, dropping down the 50% in-person clinical was a good step. But unfortunately, again, it still prevents students in moving forward because we can't get into hospitals to even do that. My school, my cohort, only had 13 days left of in-person clinicals to conclude our semester and move on to our last semester this fall. So just 13 days. And with the 50% would bring that down to only 7 days in-person clinical. But again, we can't even do that because hospitals are closed. And because of that, we are now having to repeat the entire semester all over again. And all of our hard work we compliantly completed and passed per your regulations is now being thrown away. Just days of in-person clinical is putting us back an entire semester, and we are no longer graduating in December 2020, but now May 2021. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. This is the moderator, and the last individual was the last person to identify that they would like to make a comment on that agenda item. So I have turned off the question and answer feature. Board President, that was the last person making a comment. So I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you very much, BRN moderator. At this time, I'd like to call for the vote. If there's no other comments from board members. Seeing no other comments from board members, I'd like to call for the vote now, beginning with myself. Michael Jackson votes yes. Board member Gerber.
Gerber votes yes.
Elizabeth Woods. Elizabeth
Yes.
Woods.
Woods,
Franny
yes.
Phillips.
Phillips votes yes.
Thank you. Next board member is Imelda Seha Buckowitz.
Imelda Seha Buckowitz votes yes.
Ken Marlborough.
Ken Marlborough votes yes.
Dolores Trujillo.
Trujillo votes yes.
And board member Skelton, she's still absent.
Board President, I will check for her right now and make sure that she's not in our list of attendees awaiting to be promoted up. From what I can see, Board President, looks like she's not rejoined the meeting.
All right, looks like the motion carries. All right, moving on to item 6.3, discussion and possible action regarding revision to the May and June 2020 meetings as the dates, location, and cancellation during the declared state of emergency. Any discussion from our executive officer or vice president on this?
President Jackson, I mean, basically, it's fairly straightforward. This is also in the category of what we've seen very dramatically, which is our need to be very flexible in dealing with all of the situations that come to us. And given that we have a meeting, because we've posted a meeting in May and June, we don't have the flexibility currently to change that, except to do it today by giving this flexibility to moving forward. So, for example, this is the reason that we ended up in the situation we were in February, where we literally had a meeting a day before a scheduled meeting to try to consider whether or not to hold the scheduled meeting. What we're suggesting here under 6.2 is that for the last two meetings that are currently posted on our website, which is May and June, it makes sense that the board today in public meeting provide flexibility for the scheduling of those meetings going forward. For example, we know we have an audit report coming up at some point in these next 2 months. We know that we have litigation pending. We can presume, I think, that we will be dealing with this subject in some shape or form. So, but we don't know the timing of all these things right now. We don't know whether they fit neatly with our currently scheduled meetings. So the goal here is to allow us to be able to make those choices depending basically on what's going on, and to work with staff to do that. Again, just for the May and June 2020 meetings.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to make a motion that we, I'd like to make a motion. Is that board member Seha Buckowicz, you want to make a comment?
Yes. So I just need some clarifications regarding the motion you're going to make. So the discipline hearings for now, considering the crisis we're in, those are not going to, if this continues in May and June, those will not continue, correct? And how are we handling those people that were already scheduled? Are you there? Hello?
Is the board counsel, Reza, can you answer that question for Seha Buckowicz as far as how the, or Loretta Melby, how the disciplinary cases have been canceled for in-person hearings?
This is Reza. The Office of Administrative Hearings put out an order canceling in-person hearings. I'm not sure I fully understood the question. The way I took the question was whether the need to process disciplinary cases at a scheduled board meeting would be taken into consideration in scheduling the May and June meetings. Perhaps the question can be restated or clarified, or we can have the motion made and then go to board member comments and questions.
Okay, I just have one more other question. So we don't know how long to the extent, so we're going to vote on May and June. I would like this board to consider July, which is not a regular scheduled meeting, just for the sake of, maybe catch up with some of our disciplinary cases or other business that is being put on the back burner because of all this crisis.
I would agree with that. So my motion would be to give direction to the administrative committee in this state of emergency for the May and June meeting to work with staff if the possibility arises where we need to cancel the meeting, and to hold a meeting in July if permitted. That's my motion.
I will second your motion.
Thank you very much. Are there any further comments from the board?
President Jackson. I just want to clarify. Can you give me an example? I'm a little concerned about canceling any meetings, considering what we have going on here. Can you give me an example of why we would need to cancel a meeting in May or June?
No one knows the health of anybody that's going to be involved in the board meeting currently. And as you saw the letter come out from Loretta Melby with a case of one of the contractors that was working in DCA who tested positive for COVID-19, and we don't know what's going to happen. We just want to leave the option open to be able to adjust to the state of emergency and to whatever's going on in the climate.
Okay, well, thank you. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
President Jackson, this is Trandy Phillips, and I have a question. Are you thinking of as a potential, we could have the May and June meetings, but on different dates, or we could cancel them? There's the and or option. Is that what your motion is saying?
We can leave the options open to switching the May and June meetings to July. This is why we want the flexibility to be able to adjust.
Michael, this is Lori, the acting executive officer. I wanted to also provide some clarification that this is not necessarily just to cancel a meeting, but maybe to be more flexible with the dates if we need to move them by a week or so to accommodate. The other thing is that with locations, if we do end up having to find a location versus doing it on a virtual platform, we have to consider contract issues with scheduling and canceling of those as well. So I would look at this item more as a flexibility within scheduling of dates versus canceling of locations. Canceling of board meetings altogether.
This is Trandy Phillips. Thank you for that clarification. That helps a lot.
You're welcome.
Are there any public comments, BRN moderator?
Thank you, Board President. We'll now activate the question and answer panel for the public to be able to indicate that they would like to make a comment. I'm doing that now. Let's provide a brief reminder to the public that they simply have to insert comment time requested, or I would like to make a comment in the question and answer box, which is presented currently. And then I will call on that individual for them to be able to speak, unmute their microphone, and they will have 2 minutes to make their comments. I do see an individual who would like to make a comment, so I will go ahead and unmute that individual's microphone. Individual is identified with the initials LS. I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment.
My name is LaShonda.
LS, your microphone is unmuted.
My name is LaShonda Shannon. I'm an analyst at the board. I have a question for the board's legal counsel. It's my understanding that existing statute says the notice of each board meeting must include an agenda that is prepared for the meeting. The agenda must include all items of business to be transacted or discussed at the meeting. No item shall be added to the agenda subsequent to the provision of the notice, and items not included on the agenda may not be acted on or discussed, even if no action is to be taken by the agency. So I'm confused. At the beginning of the meeting, Donna Gerber went off topic, and I have notes that she said, I'm going to go off the agenda here. Is that not a violation of the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act Government Code Section 11,125?
This is board counsel. LaShonda, do you recall what it was that Donna said?
For board members and some other accolades of things that she wanted to address.
Yeah,
and
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that noticing, giving of accolades under the circumstances, and given the nature of what Donna said, that it was not a violation of the Open Meeting Act.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
This is the moderator. We'll then move on to the next individual who is represented the next individual is Sharon Goldfarb. I will be unmuting Sharon Goldfarb's microphone. So Sharon, you will have 2 minutes, and I'm unmuting your microphone now.
Sharon Goldfarb, president of COADN North. I just want to let you know, for me, the optics are very bad that you're canceling meetings and not choosing to use teleconferencing at this very dire time. And if you do need to cancel meetings, then I encourage you to find regulations that are maximum flexibility so we can finish educating our nursing students. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. We will move on to the next individual for public comment. The individual who's up next is identified by the name Judy Corliss. So Judy Corliss, I will be unmuting your microphone in a moment. Judy, I'm unmuting your microphone. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, Judy Corliss, former board member. If we are to cancel meetings, I thought today's purpose was to outline this crisis that we're in now. It seems to me that it's of utmost importance that all of this get handled as soon as humanly possible under the governor's order. So why would we move some of these things down to July? It makes no sense to me. And our directors and our colleges need answers. So I don't understand why we would even canceling. Maybe moving times, if there's a problem with that, I can understand. But my question would be, why would we not utilize this time to get the answers out to these directors and schools so that we have no more close and the students are taken care of at the very maximum ability with the flexibility of our. Thank you so much.
This is the BRN moderator.
Sorry, this is Reza. Before moving on to another comment, I wonder if I could just interject one thing briefly. This may help to understand as well. From what I understand, I kind of carrying on what Lori mentioned about the focus being more on flexibility and moving of dates as opposed to strictly the ability to cancel meetings. I just wanted to provide another example. Today's meeting, as obviously it's occurring under a WebEx platform, this is the first meeting that the board has had, at least in recent times, with this platform, and a lot of scrambling had to occur in order to ensure that this would successfully take place, and the board felt constrained that given that the board had previously voted to hold a meeting on today's date, felt constrained that it could not push this meeting back, say, a few days or a week, in order to ensure that the platform was successfully tested and that everything had been worked out so that the meeting could take place and all the logistical issues were sorted out. Obviously, with some of that stuff having been sorted out, it may be less of a risk coming up, but I believe part of the concern was those types of logistics and the board being hindered from rescheduling or pushing back a meeting. I think the board is well aware of the urgency of addressing the issues surrounding the pandemic, but if today's meeting wasn't as successful as it has been so far, we would have gotten a lot of negative attention to the fact that we couldn't conduct this successfully. So having had a little flexibility to work those kind of things out is, I think, what's part of the motivation here.
Thank you. This is the BRN moderator. We'll return back to public comment. I'd just like to make a brief reminder for members of the board to ensure that their microphones are muted if they are not speaking. I'll go ahead and move on to the next individual who's represented that they would like to make a public comment, and that is an individual identifying themselves as Garrett Chan. Garrett Chan, I will be unmuting your microphone now, and you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. Your microphone is unmuted.
Thank you, Garrett Chan, CEO of Health Impact. I want to thank legal counsel for that clarification, as well as acting executive officer Loretta. In terms of seeking flexibility, this is very rich. I am not sure if I recall what the actual motion is on the table, but I would ask that the board consider modifying the motion to strike out the word cancel. So, of course, we would, or I would be very supportive of being flexible of holding meetings, but I would not support the canceling of any meetings, and as outlined by the agenda item summary for this particular agenda item 6.2. Thank you.
This is the BRN and answer panel, as that was the last member of the public who'd indicated they'd like to make a comment on that agenda item. So, Board President, I'll hand it back to you.
This is Board Member Imelda Ceja-Budquist. I would ask President Michael Jackson to maybe take out the word cancellation from his motion.
This is Donna Gerber. Could we get some clarification, Reza? My understanding is that because the May and June dates were adopted by a resolution of the board almost a year ago, that we don't have the ability to even modify those dates unless we cancel them, unless the board acts to actually have the authority to cancel them. In other words, let's say we wanted to have the May meeting at a different date, on a different date, or we wanted to do 2 meetings in June instead of having the May meeting and then the June meeting, or we wanted to do 3 meetings in May rather than have the May meeting and the June meeting that are currently posted. My understanding is we don't have currently, without this board taking that action to cancel those previously posted meetings, we don't have the ability to move that around. And just for everybody who's been looking at this with us, that's the issue. The issue isn't, do we want to cancel or not cancel a meeting? The issue is, because we passed these dates as a board by resolution, we don't have the ability to modify them unless we do that today.
This is Reza. I think Donna, that's generally correct. The concern was that because the dates for this meeting, for the May and June meetings, were adopted as board action, that those could only be changed by board action. I think the board could either vote to change those meeting dates, or the board could vote to give discretion to the admin committee and staff to modify those if necessary. I think it's important to, whether a meeting is canceled and set on another date, or the date is just changed. I think that's kind of a illusory distinction. And again, I think that it's that board staff and the admin committee would take into account the urgency of acting and being able to deliberate and discuss in a board meeting in deciding whether to cancel and reschedule a meeting or change the date, however you want to look at that type of action. So, I think it's a matter of, putting the trust in the admin committee and staff to take into consideration the factors that are at play.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Jackson, can you modify your motion?
No, I will not be modifying my motion because we need to allow for maximum flexibility during the state of emergency, which includes up to potentially canceling a meeting, changing a meeting date, moving a meeting location.
Mr. Jackson?
Flexibility.
Mr. Jackson, this is Trandy Phillips. Could you read your current motion since we're discussing the motion? Could we hear your motion in its entirety, please?
My motion is to give the administrative committee the ability to work with staff, executive staff at the BRN, the ability to schedule meetings, the May and June meeting only. Going forward, the May and June meeting only. The ability to work and be flexible, which includes cancellation, moving the meeting dates because of the declared state of emergency, and unpredictability about what's going on. That's my motion.
Previously, you had indicated and possibly holding a meeting in July.
And possibly holding a meeting in July.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you still seconding that motion, Imelda?
I will second that motion. Yes, definitely.
Any more board comments? Seeing no further board comments, I call for the vote. Michael Jackson votes yes. Donna Gerber?
Gerber, yes.
Elizabeth Woods?
Woods, yes.
Randy Phillips?
Phillips, yes.
Imelda Seha Buckowitz?
Imelda Seha Buckowitz votes yes.
Kenneth Marlborough?
Marlborough, yes.
Dolores Trujillo?
Trujillo, yes.
Karen Skelton?
Skelton, yes.
Thank you very much, board members. Moving right along to item 7.0, report on the Education Committee. We'll turn this over to our nursing education liaison. BRN moderator, would you unmute her mic, please?
This is the moderator. I will unmute her microphone now. I will give a verbal indication once I've done so. Marianne, your microphone is unmuted.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Marianne McCarthy, Nursing Education Consultant and Liaison to the Education and Licensing Committee. I will be presenting items 7.1 through 7.6 of the agenda today. Beginning with item number 7.1, recommend ratification of minor curriculum revision and acknowledge receipt of program progress report. According to board policy, nursing education consultants may approve minor curriculum changes that do not significantly alter philosophy, objectives, or content. Approvals must be reported to the Education Licensing Committee and to the board. Minor curriculum revisions include the following categories: curriculum changes, work study program, preceptor program, public health nurse certificate program, progress reports that are not related to continuing approval. The following programs have submitted minor curriculum revisions and progress reports that have been approved by the NECs.
Item 7.0, I make a motion that we accept.
I will second your motion. This is Imelda.
Are there any further board comments for item 7.1? Sorry, 7.1. Are there any public comments for item 7.1?
Board President, I will now activate the question and answer feature so that we can obtain requests to make public comments. That feature is now active. I would remind members of the public who want to make a comment that they can do so by indicating that entering "I would like to make a comment" in the question box, which is now currently active. I'll pause for a moment to allow members of the public a moment to enter that into the box, and then we'll unmute microphones in the order that I receive. Board President, no one has indicated they would like to make a comment. Would you like me to close the public comment window?
Yes, please close the public comment window.
I will do that now.
I call for the vote. Item 7.1. Michael Jackson votes yes. Donna Gerber.
Gerber, yes.
Elizabeth Woods.
Woods, yes.
Randy Phillips.
Randy Phillips, yes.
Imelda Seha Buckwitz.
Imelda, yes.
Kenneth Marlborough.
Marlborough, yes.
Dolores Trujillo.
Trujillo, yes.
Karen Skelton.
Skelton, yes.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to agenda, Moving on to agenda item 7.2, discussion and possible action regarding education and licensing committee recommendations. 7.2.1, recommend ratification of applications for pre-licensure program continuing approval. The BRN staff have conducted a regularly scheduled continuing approval visit for the schools listed. This process begins with a self-study written by the nursing program and analyzed by the assigned nursing education consultant. It is followed by a 2 to 3 day visit, including visits to clinical sites and verification of resources, as well as meetings with students, faculty, and administration. The following programs have met all board rules and regulations for continuation of approval of a pre-licensure nursing program. These are consent agenda items: Mount San Jacinto Associate Degree Nursing Program, and Waiver Institute Associate Degree Nursing Program.
I make a motion that we accept.
Donna Gerber,
Ken Marlborough,
yes.
I'll second.
Moderator, is there any public comment?
Thank you, Board President. I will activate the question and answer feature now for the public to indicate whether they would like to make a comment. I've now activated that feature. Reminder to members of the public, simply insert in the question box that you would like to make a comment, and then you will be called upon and your microphone will be unmuted. I'll now pause for a few moments for the public to indicate whether or not they would like to make a comment. Board President, I see no one indicating they would like to make a comment. Would you like me to close the comment window now?
Yes, please close the comment window.
Doing so now. Thank you.
I'd like to call for the vote. Donna Gerber.
Gerber, yes.
Elizabeth Woods.
Woods, yes.
Randy Phillips.
Phillips, yes.
Imelda Seha Buckwitz.
Imelda, yes.
Kenneth Marlborough.
Marlborough, yes.
Dolores Trujillo.
Trujillo, yes.
Karen Skelton.
Skelton, yes.
Thank you.
Agenda item 7.2.2, recommend ratification of approval of a pre-licensure program unit adjustment or other changes. These are major curriculum revisions with no enrollment increase. Let me see here. The BRN staff have evaluated the major curriculum revision requests. The following programs have met all board rules and regulations for a major curriculum revision without an enrollment increase for a pre-licensure nursing program. These are consent agenda items: the Valley Foundation School of Nursing at San Jose State University Baccalaureate Degree Nursing Program, and Stanbridge University Associate Degree Nursing Program.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept.
Woods will second that.
VRN moderator, public comment.
Board President, we will open up the public comment window now. Of the question and answer option. Members of the public, you can indicate you wish to make a comment by inserting the I'm requested or I would like to make a comment in the question box, which is open now. You'll then have 2 minutes to make your comment, and I will call on individuals in the order that I receive requests for comment. I'll pause for a few moments to allow members of the public to indicate whether or not they would like to make a comment. Board President, I see no one indicating that they would like to make a comment. At your direction, I'll go ahead and close the comment window.
Please close it. At this time, I call for the vote. Michael Jackson, yes. Donna Gerber?
Gerber, yes.
Woods?
Woods, yes.
Phillips?
Phillips, yes.
Seha Buckowitz?
Melda Seha-Buckowitz, yes.
Marlboro?
Marlboro, yes.
Trujillo?
Trujillo, yes.
And Skelton?
Skelton, yes.
Thank you. Agenda item 7.2.3, recommend continuing approval or other action for approved nursing program Mendocino College Associate Degree Nursing Program with a progress report to the NEC in 1 year, which would be March of 2021. The BRN staff have conducted a regularly scheduled continuing approval visit for Mendocino College Associate Degree Nursing Program. This process began with a self-study written by the nursing program and analyzed by the nursing education consultant. It was followed by a 2 to 3 day site visit, including visits to clinical sites, verifying resources, and meetings with students, faculty, and administrators. Mendocino College Associate Degree Nursing Program has met all board rules and regulations for continuing approval of a pre-licensure nursing program. This is a consent agenda item.
I make a recommendation that we accept. Do I have a second?
Trujillo, second.
Trujillo seconded.
Okay.
VRN moderator, public comment.
Thank you, Board President. I will open up the public comment now, activating the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by inserting the phrase, I would like to make a comment or comment time requested. At that point, they would have 2 minutes to make a comment, and I will call on individuals in the order that they represent that they would like to make a comment. I'll pause for just a few more moments to see if anyone would like to make the comment. Board President, at this time, no one has indicated they would like to make a comment. Would you like me to close out the window?
Close out the window. I'd like to call for the vote at this time. Michael Jackson votes yes. Donna Gerber?
Gerber, yes.
Woods?
Woods, yes.
Phillips?
Phillips, yes.
Seha-Buckowitz, yes.
Marlboro?
Marlboro, yes.
Trujillo?
Yes.
And Skelton?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 7.3, discussion and possible action regarding whether to accept the recommendation to approve or take other action regarding pre-licensure program unit adjustment or other changes for California State University San Bernardino Baccalaureate Degree Nursing Program. This is a major curriculum revision with an enrollment increase and a change from quarters to semesters. I am presenting California State University San Bernardino for Dr. Wayne Boyer, who is the NEC for that program. And joining me on the line is Ms. Angie Gaglang, who is the program director, who will be answering any questions following the presentation. A proposal for a major curriculum revision for the BSN program at CSU San Bernardino was submitted in November of 2019. This revision changes the curriculum from a 10-week quarter to a 15-week semester with an enrollment increase, which is planned to be implemented in the fall of 2020. The proposed curriculum revision moves from 12 quarters to 8 semesters delivered over 4 years and complies with the CSU system-wide initiative to cap baccalaureate majors at 120 semester units. Revisions were made to the conceptual framework in order to better meet the defined scholarship of nursing. The agenda item summary in your packet details what the new curriculum includes. The curriculum revision will also support an enrollment increase at the satellite campus of CSU SB, which is located in Palm Desert. The Palm Desert campus is 71 miles from the main campus. The program is seeking to increase enrollment at the Palm Desert campus to 18 students twice a year instead of 18 students once a year for an annual enrollment of 36 students. The total enrollment for CSU San Bernardino will increase from 114 students per year to 132 students per year, but will not impact the San Bernardino campus nor clinical sites in that area. The Palm Desert campus has sufficient space and resources to support this enrollment increase. The enrollment increase will align with the enrollment patterns of the main campus. It will also allow teaching of nursing courses every semester, therefore increasing retention of faculty. CSU San Bernardino continues to have NCLEX pass rates above the BRN minimum of 75%. This includes the report.
This is the BRN moderator. Would you like me to unmute Angie's microphone at this point?
Yes, please.
Angie, your microphone is unmuted.
Okay, well, thank you so much, the board, and I thank Dr. Boyer for his assistance in our endeavor to get a major curriculum revision change at Cal State San Bernardino. This has been a long goal for San Bernardino, seeing that all of the other Cal State's nursing programs have converted from quarter to semester. I think we're one of the last ones to convert. It was a tremendous job, so I would just like to thank our CSUSB family of faculty, students, and staff for their hard work in this ginormous major curriculum revision to convert our plan of study from quarter to semester. I would also like to thank our clinical partners in San Bernardino and in the Coachella Valley for their continued support in our nursing program as well as our students. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. This is Board President Jackson. I make a motion that we accept.
I will second your motion.
You know this, Sahab Buckowitz seconds the motion. Are there any public comments, BRN moderator?
Thank you, Board President. I will activate the question and answer panel now for members of the public to indicate whether or not they would like to make a comment on this agenda item. The question and answer panel is open. Members of the public can insert comment time requested, or I would like to make a comment into the question and answer box. And then I, as the moderator, will call on them and allow them 2 minutes time to make their public comment. I'll pause now for a moment for individuals to indicate whether or not they'd like to make a public comment. Board President, no one has expressed that they would like to make a public comment. At your direction, I'll go ahead and close the window.
Please close the window. Michael Jackson, I'd like to call for the vote, and I vote yes. Donna Gerber?
Gerber, yes.
Woods?
Woods, yes.
Phillips?
Phillips, yes.
Sahab Buckowitz?
Sahab Buckowitz, yes.
Marlboro?
Marlboro, yes.
Trujillo?
Trujillo,
And Skelton?
Skelton, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 7.4, discussion and possible action regarding whether to accept the recommendation to accept the program progress report with discussion and possible action to address any performance gaps, including actions described in CCR 1423.2A for East Los Angeles College Associate Degree Nursing Program. I am the NEC for ELAC, and I will be presenting this program. Joining me on the line is Dr. Armida Ornelas, who is the Vice President at ELAC. At the November 19 board meeting, ELAC was put on warning status with the intent to close. Reports for this meeting were submitted by the college administration, the nursing program, and workforce development. The college administration has submitted a report responding to the outside comprehensive program assessment that was submitted to the administration in March of 2020. These are the new decisions made by the ELAC administration. An outside liaison is facilitating the new curriculum development, which is to be ready at the end of spring 2020. The ELAC nursing program will not accept students in the summer of 2020. The next cohort will be accepted in the fall of 2020. The college will look to hire a part-time faculty member to be dedicated to student remediation. Only BRN-approved faculty will be assigned to teach in the 5 nursing specialty areas. Assistant Director number 1 will lead Kaplan Resources and facilitate NCLEX pass rate improvement. Assistant Director number 2 will lead the program evaluation plan. The program has approval to hire 2 full-time faculty members, 1 in the specialty of medical surgical nursing and 1 in psych mental health. The college has identified a leadership succession plan for when the program director retires in December of 2020. The current plan is to submit a major curriculum revision for the new ELAC curriculum at the May ELC and the June board meetings for approval to begin in fall of 2020. I would also like to request that ELAC be allowed to change their submission of progress reports from monthly to prior to each ELC meeting, and also be required to attend those ELC meetings only, not board meetings, unless there is issues of concerns brought forth by the NEC. This concludes my report.
This is the moderator. Board President, would you like me to unmute the microphone of Dr. Ornelas? I see she's on the line.
Yes, please.
Dr. Ornelas, your microphone is unmuted.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the board. This is Armida Ornelas. Just wanted to reiterate some of the points that Ms. McCarthy made. The college has been working diligently to address several of the areas that our comprehensive review, the results of the review. Just early this week, our local curriculum committee did approve all of the proposed or the proposed new changes for our curriculum that will begin with the incoming class. So just want to say that we've been working diligently to address the several points that came out of the recommendations from our comprehensive review. Thank you.
Are there any comments or questions from the board members? Seeing no comments or questions from the board members, I make a recommendation and we accept the progress report and we leave ELAC status unchanged.
Elizabeth Woods will second that.
Are there any public comments?
Mr.
This is the moderator.
I'm sorry, thank you. Do you want them to continue to submit and report at every meeting, meaning ELC and board meetings in your acceptance?
Yes, I would.
Continue. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This is the moderator. We've opened up the Q&A panel for members of the public to indicate if they would like to make a public comment. To do so, they can simply input in the question panel, I would like to make a comment, or comment time requested. We will then provide 2 minutes for you to make your comments to the board. I will unmute people's microphones in the order that we receive them. The request to make a public comment. I will pause just a few more moments to see if anyone would like to make a public comment on this agenda item. Board President, I see no individuals of the public indicating they'd like to make public comment. I will go ahead and close the public comment window at this time.
Thank you. I'd like to call for the vote. Michael Jackson votes yes. Gerber?
Gerber, yes.
Wood?
Wood, yes.
Phillips?
Phillips, yes.
They have Buckowitz? They have Buckowitz?
Yes, I vote yes. This is Imelda.
Marlboro?
Marlboro, yes.
Trujillo?
Trujillo, yes.
And Skelton?
Skelton, yes. Skelton, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item number 7.5, discussion and possible action regarding whether to accept recommendation to change warning status with intent to close to deferred status of a pre-licensure nursing program, Career Care Institute, Associate Degree Nursing Program, with quarterly progress report to the NEC for 1 year and return to the ELC committee meeting in March of 2021. I am presenting Career Care Institute for Dr. Donna Schutte, who is the NEC for this program. Joining me on the line is Dr. Kim Gore, who is the Assistant Program Director. In November of 2019, the board placed Career Care Institute on warning status with the intent to close following a site visit in August of 2019. This school visit was to finalize the initial approval process and was moved from September to August in response to the resignation of the fifth program director. 13 areas of noncompliance were identified and are listed in your materials. The program has made the following changes to correct all areas of noncompliance. A director has been hired with a 1-year appointment. Orientation of assistant director is in progress. This person will assume the director role in June of 2020. A second assistant director has been approved and is in orientation to assume the assistant director's duties in June of 2020. An administrative hiring, succession, and retention plan is in place. A faculty hiring plan, a new faculty orientation, and a faculty retention plan incorporates exit interviews are now in place. A policy addressing both theory and clinical instructor absences and tardiness has been developed. Attendance, including start and end times for theory and clinical courses, is being monitored daily and is reviewed by the assistant director on an ongoing basis. An updated total program evaluation plan is being implemented. All faculty and clinical facilities are BRN approved. The program's organizational chart has been updated. A plan for course faculty communication throughout the semester has been developed, along with structure, function, and schedules for all program committees. A policy regarding student participation is available in the student handbook. Air conditioning and drinking fountains are now functional. ATI procedures are consistent with program policy. Faculty and students are receiving orientation at the identified clinical facilities. And information regarding the LVN 30 muted option is available on the CCI website, nursing website, and in the student handbook. All areas of noncompliance are now in compliance, and Career Care Institute is requesting a full return to continuing approval status. This concludes the report.
This is the moderator. I will now unmute the microphone of Dr. Kim Gore. Dr. Kim Gore, your microphone is unmuted.
Thank you. I would like to ask the board to consider granting us full approval at this time. As you know, the 13 areas of non-compliance or findings, we have fixed them all. When we were on a deferred approval status, when we were on the warning status, with the intent to close in 1 year, that really had a negative impact on the school and our clinicals. I lost a lot of contracts that we were in negotiation for clinical sites, and they backed out because of the wording on the board, even though we explained to them that was normal verbiage, and we were very transparent about what was going on. But I lost contracts, I lost clinical sites. One of our big clinical facilities, Antelope Valley Hospital, they were actually very concerned where they were not going to allow the RN students to come back into the facility, as well as the LVN students, because of the verbiage on the board's website. Their legal team and administration was very concerned. Our campus director, Evelyn, met with them, and because we are very transparent with our community partners, we shared with them the findings and what we've done to correct them. That they wanted reassurance that there was not a problem with the school as a whole, because we have many different programs besides just the RN program. So while we did experience a very negative impact in the past, my concern is if we have a deferred approval status, that's going to continue to be a barrier for our student enrollment and obtaining clinical sites for our students, and then obviously creating a clinical displacement for the students. We have been working very closely with Dr. Judy, and I appreciate all her support and guidance that she has given to the program. We plan to keep the current or the existing structure in place, has to oppose what the earlier instability was here in the ADN department. So, I would ask the board to consider giving us full approval and with continued quarterly progress reports to Dr. Judy for a year, or monthly progress reports, whatever you feel is necessary. And, I can, if we fail to comply, then we can return back to the board. But at this point, we have fixed everything. Our pass rate, our NCLEX pass rate was 93%. Everything is working well. Everything's in place. And I would just ask the board to please consider at this point granting us full approval. Thank you.
In NEC, what are the recommendations? Do you have any recommendations for the board?
Dr. Judy shared with me that she agrees with giving them approval and has supported them through this process, and has no hesitation in giving them full approval.
At this time, I'd like to make a recommendation that we grant them full approval. Do I have a second?
Phillips, I'll second that.
Open the comments up for public comment, BRN moderator.
Thank you, Board President. We are doing that now. Members of the public, I am opening up the question and answer box for you to indicate whether or not you would like to make a comment publicly to the board. So at this time, you can do so by indicating that you would like to make a comment by inserting the phrase "comment time requested" or "I would like to make a comment" in the question box. It should be viewable on your screen at this time. If once you have identified or represented that you'd like to make a comment, I will then call on you and unmute your microphone and provide you 2 minutes to make those comments. I'll pause for a few more moments to see if anyone would like to make public comment on this agenda item. Board Board President, no one has indicated that they would like to make comments, so I will close out the comment box now.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to call.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes, please.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Just for clarification, full approval of CCI, do we need any progress reports or any returns, or just
I like
full approval?
I like quarterly reports and return in a year.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to call for the vote. Michael Jackson votes yes. Gerber?
Gerber, yes.
Woods?
Woods, yes.
Phillips?
Phillips, yes.
Buckowitz?
Buckowitz, yes.
Marlboro?
Marlboro, yes.
Trujillo?
Trujillo, yes.
Skelton?
Skelton, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 7.6, NCLEX update. I am presenting the NCLEX update for Katie Daugherty, Nursing Education Consultant. The NCLEX pass rate update is for information only. The Board of Registered Nursing receives quarterly reports from the National Council of State Boards of Nursing regarding NCLEX test results by quarter and annually. The tables in your materials show this information for the last 12 months and by each quarter. As you can see, California had 12,112 total test takers, and with a 91.54% pass rate. The United States and Territories had 170,750 with an 88.06% pass rate. So California is still on top. Current information related to the National Council Pearson View testing and the impact of COVID-19 on NCLEX candidates effective from March 2020 until July 2020 can be accessed at the website listed in the materials. There's an ncsbn.org website, a link in there that you can get this information from. Also, California educators are encouraged to access the COVID-19 NCLEX exam educator webinar. This webinar discusses the modified NCLEX exam, which will be given between March and July of 2020. The webinar is less than 30 minutes long and includes a printable PowerPoint. This concludes the report.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 7.7, licensing program update.
This is the moderator. I'm unmuting staff person Christina Spriggs' microphone now.
BRN moderator, was there any public comments for item 7.6?
I will open up the comment window now for that. Give me one moment to do so. So I'll remind the public that if you have comments related to agenda item 7.6, please indicate that you would like to make a comment now by inserting the phrase, I would like to make a comment or comment time requested in the question and answer box, which you should see displayed on your screen. Once you've represented that you'd like to make a comment, I will call on you and unmute your microphone so that you can make your comment. You'll have 2 minutes to do so. I will pause now for just a few more moments to see if any members of the public would like to indicate that they'd like to make a comment on this agenda item. Board President, no one has indicated they'd like to make a comment. I'm going to close the comment box out now.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 7.7.
Thank you. I will unmute staff person Christina Spriggs' microphone now. Christina, your microphone is unmuted.
Good afternoon, everyone. The licensing program report. This is Christina Spriggs, the Deputy Chief Licensing with the board. As stated in the Executive Officer's report, the Licensing Division has implemented teleworking agreements for staff as of March 23rd, 2020. The transition has had some challenges, but staff have responded well and have been open to the change. I would like to thank our licensing staff for adapting to all of the recent changes and working with the management and supervisory team to ensure we are successful. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank my manager and supervisory team for stepping up and ensuring we had everything in place to implement the telework option for all of our staff. In addition to teleworking, they have had to adjust from in-person interactions with their staff to communicating via email, instant messaging through Skype, and via the phone. They have been there for staff, helping them troubleshoot this new environment we're all working in, and send motivational emails to keep staff morale positive. Once again, thank you to all of my licensing division staff and to my management and supervisory team. Our application processing. The licensing division evaluators are currently processing the initial review of California and U.S. exam and endorsement applications received in late February and early March, and outgoing verifications and inactive to active requests received in March. Some California nursing programs have notified the licensing program of their intent to have multiple graduation dates for their graduating classes and have started uploading small batches of student transcripts to the BRN cloud drive. We will continue to monitor transcripts that are provided to the board and will process applications accordingly. Since the reorganization of the board and redirection of some services to the licensing division, our top priority upon the unit consolidation was improving the timeframe and processes for outgoing license verifications and inactive to active requests. We continue to make improvements to both processes and are currently processing requests received within 4 to 6 weeks of receipt. As staff are working from home and systems are slower, we are working to maintain these processing timeframes and ensuring no backlogs emerge. Moving on to our statistics, the board continues to use QBIRD and can create and run various reports upon requests. The board utilizes custom reports to find areas of improvement in our processes, as well as better predict workflow fluctuations. The licensing management team have been reviewing processing time statistics and have provided a comparison of average application processing time for the past 3 fiscal years and current fiscal year to date. Average processing time statistics capture the processing time for exam and endorsement applications, from receipt of the application to approval of the applicant to exam, and then receipt of an application to licensure for endorsements. And as you can see, our current fiscal year, we are about 32.3 days and 37.2 days for exam and endorsement. The average time for exam to licensure for fiscal year 1920, on average, we have had 93% of the applicants who took and passed the exam issued a license within 3 days of taking that exam. And then for our applications received table, you can see that thus far we have received over 31,500 applications. And then I've added a new table to address the total number of outgoing verifications and inactive to active requests that the board receives by fiscal year. And currently, as you can see, our outgoing verification numbers are close to 46,000 requests. We're at 45,826, and our inactives to actives, we are just over 2,100 requests that staff are processing on a daily basis. Staffing updates, the licensing division currently has 6 vacancies due to newly established positions and staff movement. We are in various stages of the recruitment process for all 6 of the vacancies. So that concludes my report. Are there any questions from the board?
Are there any questions or comments from the board members? Christina, we'd like to, on behalf of the board, we'd like to thank your staff for being able to work in the online environment, being able to adjust at a time of crisis like this, even though you may not see it. On behalf of the frontline workers that are there, my co-workers that I work alongside at the ER, we appreciate the BRN staff because they are very essential to keep the machine rolling.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Are there any public comments related to item 7.7?
This is the moderator. I'll be activating the public comment question and answer feature now. Members of the public, the feature has been activated. If you would like to make a comment, simply do so by indicating I would like to make a comment in the question box that is open right now. Upon prod stating that you'd like to make a comment, I will call upon you and unmute your microphone. You will then have 2 minutes to address the board. I'll pause a few more moments to see if anyone from the public would like to indicate that they have a comment to make. Board President, no one has indicated they would like to make a comment. I'm turning the feature off.
Thank you very much, BRN moderator. BRN board members, at this time, would you care to take a break? Because we've been at this almost 4 hours.
So if we take a break, what would be the process? Do we call in? Do we get back on the webcast? Or do we keep it on?
What would you suggest, BRN moderator?
One moment, let me seek advice from some other technical experts. 1 moment, please. Well, this is the moderator. We'd recommend that everyone stay on and mute themselves. If they inadvertently unmute themselves, we can mute them manually as well, Board President. So that's our recommendation to ensure that there's no challenges when we come back from the break.
Would it be okay if we came back around 12:35, 12:40? I mean, sorry, 1:40.
I don't know. I would say we took a 5 or 10 minute break.
What does the board members want to do?
Well, this is Donna. I need more of a break. I haven't had anything to eat and I'm getting, I'm running out of steam here. So can we
come back at 1:30 then?
Great.
This is Trandy. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Dolores, I do too.
All right. 1:30.
No, bro. I'm good with that.
All right. Thank you. So we'll come back at 1:30. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.